This has recently been the most surging segment in the automotive market, compact or small SUVs, depending on your definition of a vehicle size. SUVs or crossovers which do not exceed the length of normal compact hatchbacks, which are not much different in fuel consumption, but that are more versatile, have a more comfortable upright seating position, and it's also easier to get in and out. We're taking a look today at the non-premium segment. We also have a separate video for the compact premium SUVs. If you want to take a look at that later, we will link it down in the video description and the pinned comment. But today we fulfill your wish of comparing these vehicles here. The Mazda CX-30, the Nissan Juke, the Kia XCeed, the Toyota CHR and the Peugeot 2008. Whereas Mazda CX-30 and Nissan Juke more go into an SUV direction, the Peugeot 2008 sits in between, and the Kia XCeed and the Toyota CHR are more crossover alike. The definition of that is soft and depends on personal preference, how high a car feels from the inside and so on. Major difference in advance, the Peugeot 2008 is available all electric. This possibility sets it apart from the competitors. Other than that, let's take a detailed look at the differences in exterior, interior and the driving experience. Join me, Thomas, on this extensive tour. And later on, please tell us in the comments the Mazda CX-30, this new compact SUV by Mazda between the CX-3 and the CX-5. We're going to find out more about that today with, let's say, a dream combination of new Skyactiv X engine, all-wheel drive and automatic gearbox. We're going to take a look at the differences, which version should you actually go for, which engine, and of course all the details in exterior, interior and the driving experience here on Autogefühl. Let's go with everything of that here with Thomas in full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! In the front we can see here this three-dimensional shape. This is a dot-style grille with this glossy black paint, and the cool thing is they don't make that just exclusive to a sports version or something. This is standard equipment. Also LED headlamps are standard equipment. Optional, you can get the Matrix LED also for more high beam functionality. So a very modern design here, right? Also with this overlapping feature. 2D Mazda logo because they hide the sensor behind it, and they really have a strong crossover cladding alike, even more so soon in the side profile. And by the way, this striking red color is called Magma Red. 4,39 m, 14'4" or 173 inches is the length. That's 12 centimeters or 5 inches longer than the CX-3, or 15 centimeters or 6 inches shorter than the CX-5. And 17.5 centimeters is the ground clearance, by the way. So, I mean, it's not the true off-road SUV, but some soft off-road capabilities. Why not? Especially because we also have the all-wheel drive model here today. Basically a front-wheel driven platform, so it will be also torque on demand on the rear. That's how it works. Wheels come either with 16-inch or then directly the jump to 18-inch. 16 if you want more riding comfort and are okay with like some, less visual fanciness. This one here then 18-inch, it will look even bigger when you have summer tires mounted. So this then the option. Still, in any case, there's a big crossover wheel cladding. To me, that's a little bit too big. I think it would have been cooler if it's a little bit more subtle. Then again, the Magma Red color with a lot of cool nuances, very great color choice. This also here with the tinted windows here in the rear part. And you see they use a lot of round design elements. Again, it's not the most extraordinary look. The crossover cladding is the thing, really comes to your eyes. But overall a very contemporary styling. In the rear we can see a nice light signature right there, and also Skyactiv X logo for this special petrol engine that combines actually a base petrol engine with a self-ignition of a diesel engine at some point. Very interesting technology, definitely. Then on the left side, you see the CX-30 logo together with the all-wheel drive logo, and this is the only thing where you see or hear that it's actually the all-wheel drive model, because they don't use as like a special all-wheel drive brand. And I think it's also okay, just name it all-wheel drive and that's it, and not like 4MATIC, Quattro, 4Motion, whatever. Why do we always need a brand name for all-wheel drive? Come on, just name it all-wheel drive and that's it. And that's what Mazda has done here. Big crossover plastic cladding here also in the rear. And then two honest exhaust pipes here, left and right. As for engines, there's a 1.8 liter turbo diesel, 116 horsepower, front-wheel drive only. Then there's a 2 liter petrol engine, naturally aspirated, 122 horsepower, also available with all-wheel drive. Or now the version also with 150 horsepower of that. And then there's a 2 liter Skyactiv X engine here today. This petrol engine that combines also diesel technology with 180 horsepower, also optionally available with all-wheel drive. And in the US you get a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated engine with 186 horsepower. Now the interior, inside of the doors, is somewhat soft touch, not super soft but a little bit soft. Then you have the leatherette covers here at the inside, optional Bose sound system in this case, CX-30 entry logo. Then you have the steering wheel that came with the Mazda 3, quite sporty, and the instruments are a mix of analog and digital, soon more about that. You either have this brown scheme when you pick the animal skin, also here with the animal skin seats. They are of course optional in the price, and they are hotter in summer and cooler in winter, so that's not really desired. Stick with the base fabric seats, they are actually also more comfortable, and they also come with a nice blue leatherette setup then, for example on the dashboard. That's actually pretty fancy. And they also work on the basic ergonomics form of the seats, that's also very interesting. Getting inside is fairly easy, and that's also an advantage if you compare it to the CX-3, the smaller brother. Here you already have this, more spacious feeling, the upright seating position. Also comparing to the Mazda 3, this one here, you just sit more comfortable because of the upright seating position. That's actually pretty cool. When you put the seat in the lowest position without the panoramic roof, there's a lot of headroom left with 1.86 or 6'1". I raised it a little bit. They have a little bit more upright position, by the way. Here the additional cubby hole here is not really dampened, but I think we can actually live with that. It's not a premium car, but most of the thing we feel and touch and so on, buttons and so on, do feel premium already. Good mechanism here also for putting the steering wheel in and out and also up and down and so on. So a very comfortable seating position. Again, fabric seat is more comfortable because it more adapts to the body. Here the animal skin surface is also just stiffer, so it's another reason not to go for this extra equipment. And I always try to keep the best price performance ratio for you. So today we have like a pretty fully spec'd car, but we'll also dissect it, which is really needed and whatnot. However, most of the equipment is already included, like head-up display as standard equipment, blind spot monitor in Europe standard equipment, America mid-trim, adaptive cruise control is also standard equipment. It works pretty flawlessly, so many things already included, and also the screen setup and so on. That's pretty cool. Interior overview, soft touch material here, leatherette material, that's actually quite fancy. Also with the climate unit, I like to have it still physical, that's really cool. Also here with the vent strings and so on, steering wheel heating, seat heating, be on them when the engine is running, and everything is straightforward and clean from design and good build quality. This is also soft touch here and so on, really cool. Automatic gearbox here for today. And now that would be the point with a lot of cars where we would say, oh, it starts with a somewhat in screen, then the middle in screen is this size, and then there's the third size, and then no. This screen here, 8.8 inch, it's always that way. And left side instruments, always 7 inch in the middle, analog on left and right, always the same way. Thank you, Mazda, for making it simple, finally, to us customers then. And also to the car reviewers, of course. Soon more deals to the screens each. That will be very interesting. And one thing I had, they place it pretty far away from the driver. The thing is, because it's not a touchscreen. They say it's too dangerous to do it while driving. Therefore, they rely again on this classic pressing and turning knob. CarPlay control, you see, it does work, yes. CarPlay control would be easier with touch, but everything else, they have organized everything quite easily in the menu, so it's not the biggest flaw that you don't have a touchscreen. Again, safety also speaks for that. On the steering wheel, left side for adjusting volume, for example, and picking up the phone. And the right side then to control the adaptive cruise control, again, also standard equipment. And how you use the buttons and how they resonate for the quality with nice clicking sounds, well done. The climate unit is really cool. Again, manual, metal knurling around, then, also clicking sound here for the steering wheel, and then the seat heating would also work when the engine is running. That's just a straightforward design, very well to use it also while driving. So when the car is turned off, the instruments look all black. When you turn it on, you see everything comes to life. And then you can see on the left and the right side, it's just illuminated. But on the middle part, it's a digital screen, actually. And there you can also browse through some functions, have this analog view, have the fuel economy, which is quite decent at the moment, or also the digital tachometer. And there's the head-up display, also standard equipment, awesome. It's not too big, but actually pretty crisp and clear to read. A nice safety feature actually for more information when you just keep it everything in the line of sight. And here we go then with the details to see how the CarPlay integration looks like, and this optional Bose sound system is quite good. Not like the super top-notch system, but quite satisfied with that. So if you are a music lover, you should actually go for that. So then you can go back to the Mazda menu, like here, and it's actually kept pretty simple, like here, so there's not too much to pick from. And that's also what I like. You can always go back in the menu, and what I always try to find is also how easy I can change the language, and you can see here that also works pretty well without doing too much. So that also speaks of how easy can you actually see and realize what the system is able to do and what it does. There's also a hotkey to get to the GPS immediately, but in this case then it jumps to the CarPlay GPS when you put this GPS hotkey. Interesting. But then you can go back to the Mazda menu like this, or with the back button, for example, and go here to the navigation, and then we get to the car GPS. To zoom in and out, that will of course better with touch, but you see it also works then basically here with this knob in the front. The GPS looks a little bit old school, also how it directs the way could be a little bit better, but I think it's still somewhat okay. So I'm actually pretty fine with this infotainment system, and got, for example, some car apps, but most of the things you would probably use the Apple CarPlay or Android Auto then via cable. And the rear view camera looks like this. It's a decent resolution. It also takes all of the screen, so that's good. And you also have a drone view from above if you want, or if you order one for additional overview. Lower part then one USB connection for the smartphone, for the CarPlay or Android Auto. You can also put the smartphone right there. It's big enough. And next to that, some adaptive cup holders. And in the lower middle console you find the sport mode, talking about that while we drive the car. And then there's a central control knob, turning and pressing, GPS hotkey, going back, everything. And then the main home button and the music selection. And then you can also program some favorites if you like. The armrests have a nice leather cover, can be slid back and then also up. Then you have reasonable space below. Another USB device. And this frameless back mirror is quite large and elegant and very well to use, gives a good view. Let's get in the rear. Hardpack at the inside of the doors here, and there's not too much legroom left. It always depends on how your seat is set to the front, how much, how far away you sit from the steering wheel and how tall the driver is. But as my seating set up here at the moment, I don't have, sufficient legroom left. It's a soft part at the back here, but still a little bit cramped then as for the legroom. Headroom actually is quite okay. Still got some space left with 1.86 or 6.1. Other than that, the seating position itself is actually quite comfortable. So if you're not too tall, then it's okay then more legroom wise. Isofix at the outside, and the thing is, the flipping mechanism, it works from here, not from the trunk, but it's, you have to press that button in, and it's not, let's say, a pleasant process. Middle part here is an armrest with adaptive cup holders, and there's a quite significant middle tunnel, but there's nothing in here, just some air vents. So the trunk is open right here. It's about 430 liters of capacity, and that's what we got here. Pretty square dimensions. Below that is the sound system mounted. In this case, you could also put a replacement tire if you don't have the big sound system. And the overall measurements are here in length, about 80 centimeters, and in width it's about 1 meter, and to the cover here it's about 48 centimeters. And let me put in a suitcase that you can see how we put up with that. It works in a vertical way, and that the way it works here. 2/3, 1/3 split. I already flipped one of the seats, and the overall length to the front seats is then something a little bit less than 1 meters and 60. Yo, 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 what's up? You ended up in Thomas's driving lounge here with the Mazda CX-30. And we also, said earlier, picked some not so nice weather today because we have the all-wheel drive, see also how it performs here on some wet, slippery roads and so on. And going to talk about the difference, the normal petrol engine, the diesel, and the Skyactiv X we drive here, the automatic gearbox, the manual gearbox. Every engine version that is available. I also know the 2.5 liter naturally aspirated engine, which is reserved for the US for this car at the moment, from the CX-5. So just some comments to that first. It's a really good engine, so high displacement figure, and really love to drive it in the CX-5. Naturally power output, so I can really recommend it. And I mean, for such a small vehicle, it's really rare that we see a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated engine, so go for it. Yeah, but then in Europe we have the choices then, as I said earlier, between the smaller petrol engines and this Skyactiv X. It's like small and big in horsepower figures now, because the displacement figure is of course the same. And then the diesel. The diesel was actually quite relaxing to drive, I have to say. It has the turbo, and you don't have to hammer it with high RPMs and so on. A quite relaxing ride indeed. But the fuel economy figure was not really that much better than with the small petrol engines. So not sure for whom that would pay off then with the higher entry price and so on. And interesting is that the petrol engine with about 120 horsepower, that was a little weak. And this one here, the Skyactiv X, especially when we head up to the motorway very soon, gives a little bit better punch, and you can drive it with lower RPMs, be a little bit more, reserved as for that. So this is of course a better drive here, no doubt about that. Although it's a new technology, you never know what's it gonna be like. So as I said in the very first review, I'm not sure if I want to be among the first customers going for it, or maybe they're just wait a little bit. A good compromise, meanwhile, I think could be the 150 horsepower version of the petrol engine in Europe. Then you have something in between. Interesting is that from the acceleration figures, so this here is of course faster than the others, and about 8.5 seconds with manual and front wheel drive, and then you can mix just the automatic or all-wheel drive or pick both as we have here today. And then it's 9.2 seconds, so slower. So in this case here with all-wheel drive and automatic, the car is slower. But not that much in the Skyactiv X, you just heard it, it's then 0.7 seconds the difference. But with the non-Skyactiv X, so the normal naturally aspirated engine, petrol engine, that is way bigger, that difference, So that's rather, second, or sometimes like 2 seconds is the difference in between manual and front wheel drive and automatic all-wheel drive. So the Skyactiv X differences between the different equipment versions is smaller in the acceleration difference. That's pretty impressive. So compared to the 150 horsepower petrol engine this year, it's just 0.3 seconds difference, this one faster. But then again, with front wheel drive and the manual gearbox. But then when you put it automatic in Skyactiv X, this one is way faster than the smaller automatic and all-wheel drive. So pretty interesting. Well, general driving feeling of this car is very neutral, so to say. We also felt it with the Mazda 3, which shares the same platform. Comparison to the Mazda 3, you do sit more upright. That's more relaxing, so it's more comfortable than the Mazda 3. That's also why I prefer going for this one. Then again, the Mazda 3 feels a little bit sportier, so that's definitely a trade-off. But I mean, it's still somewhat agile, so no doubt about that. And they got a very natural steering feeling. That's, I think, something very good what they have accomplished. So you don't feel that the ratio would be messed up or something. The only thing, when you are here going over some bumps and so on, probably the only thing I do criticize with this vehicle that the suspension is not top notch. So it's not the super worst one or something, but you feel that some competitors here, for example, the VW T-Roc, when you pick the DCC, dynamic chassis control in there, adaptive suspension, it's really way better than this one here. However, this one, for example, does way better than the T-Roc. It comes with so much standard equipment. That's just so fair to the customer, and don't have to configure the car all day and then be dissatisfied at the end of the day anyway. This one, with most of the equipment, it's already in there, and that's really so cool. I really praise Mazda for that. So again, natural steering feeling. Suspension could be a little bit more comfortable when running over some bumps. That's probably the only thing I found, let's say, negative with this vehicle. Other than that, I see a good head-up display, which is also standard. Wow, who does that? Crisp view, even though it's so small, but it's totally fine. Not missing so much that I'm, not touching the screen. I mean, I can't reach it here anyway. It's also not meant to be, so it's not a touchscreen, as I said earlier. But controlling that while driving is pretty easy. The menu and so on, everything's pretty simple. And now it's time to go sport. I put in the sport mode, then the gears are turned up a little bit higher. We're heading onto the motorway, and I will accelerate as soon as it goes straight. That don't have this uphill bias, that you really know what's going on. 50 kilometers an hour to 100. So 25 miles to 60 miles. Let's see. Let's let this car pass. We don't annoy anyone. And now blind spot monitor. And now let's go. That's it. So you see, it's also not the fastest car here with the Skyactiv X, but definitely a better punch than with the naturally aspirated engines. So that's really good to have, especially when driving on the motorway. And I mean, the sound wasn't also too bad. So yeah, I mean, why not? So with the naturally aspirated engine you get in the US, the 2.5, the acceleration wouldn't be as, let's say, spontaneous as with the Skyactiv X, but you have this high displacement, rather sonorous linear power output. That's what I find cool. So the overall characteristic of the Skyactiv X engine is rather, again, the blind spot monitor, by the way, it's very well positioned as well. You can see it very well. And I mean, in the Mazda 3, it's even more crucial, but here it's also good to have it. And in European markets, you have it with standard equipment, and in the US, you have to go for the second trim level, one trim level above. So I think that's still somewhat fair. When you go back to the non-sports mode, so normal mode, car is a little bit calmer again. I can see the speed in the weather rail and the digital instruments, but also again in the head-up display, pretty cool. Stable characteristics here also on the motorway, so not leaning very much to the left and the right. So it gives me, again, this very good neutrally balanced handling. Also, because we have the all-wheel drive, more torque was being sent to the rear wheel, so I had a more even acceleration out. That's of course cool. Do you really need the all-wheel drive? Well, if you are in regions, weather conditions where you have a lot of snow, maybe slippery conditions and so on, that might be something. The majority of customers will not need it. If you really need it, again, you know, when you're in other some alpine conditions, or maybe like you live in Minnesota or something, and yeah, probably go for it. But other than that, you'll be also fine without the all-wheel drive. Now we're getting to a roundabout and doing some handling. Let's see how that one turns out, and see also how I turn the steering wheel and how we behave in the corners right there. Don't have to turn that much. Could be a little bit more progressive, but again, a very natural feeling. Car behaves very well in the corner. Of course, the Mazda 3 would be a little bit sporty here, but the cool thing is that, you know, it's not a super expensive car, not super extraordinary something, but you already have a fun car. It's fun to drive. Well, by the way, in this rainy conditions outside today, I really enjoy having the heated steering wheel here. I just love that, you know, when driving in wintertime and so on. I mean, when you accelerate out, you don't have a rear wheel bias or something. This is still mainly front wheel driven platform. So you have some torque at the rear wheels, yes. That gives it a little bit more agility when accelerating out of the corners. But again, since most of the time you're not hammering this car all the way, it's not the biggest difference than front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive. And we already had like an acceleration in here, and we have the automatic and the all-wheel drive, and we're still at about 7 liters and 100 kilometers as for the fuel economy, and we scored that also earlier in other tests. And that's really a decent figure, you know? So considering it's an SUV, an automatic, all-wheel drive, and the Skyactiv XCeed, you know, it's not that you would consume so much, like less than with the other engines, but consider this is a more powerful engine, and then we also have the additional features in here, and it doesn't consume much more. So we had about 6 liters on 1 kilometers with the naturally aspirated small petrol engine. I always say also small, that you know, the big naturally aspirated engine would be the 2.5 and the smaller than the other one. So between 6 and 7 liters for this car then, and that's actually totally fine. 6 was also the figure for the diesel, by the way. You know, stop-start function is activated, so it's all silent then in this case. Yeah, and if you think about like some 35 mpg or towards the 40 mpg regions in UK, and that's actually totally fine, you know. So actually quite happy with that. And the Mazda fuel figures were actually always quite accurate. So pretty happy about that. By the way, did you realize how quickly I could get everything going again, although having the stop-start function, and there was not like a serious startup of the engine anymore and so on. This is because they use this mild hybrid technology. In the naturally aspirated small petrol engine, they also have cylinder on demand, which is not the case here for the Skyactiv X. But here, all the petrol engines now come with this mild hybrid engine or mild hybrid concept, and that's, you know, small battery but bigger than a normal car battery would be. So that's helping then, for example, for a stop-start function and so on. And again, possibly some fuel economy improvements. So a lot of things they've done right with this vehicle. Also noise insulation wise, what's the trick there? Because they always have to take a look at the budget. Well, Mazda engineers said, let's not improve it everywhere. I mean, you know, spend a lot of money and then the price will go up, like with premium vehicles or something. What they actually did is improve the noise insulation where it matters to your head. So like more in this height here around your head and the ears. And when you do some sound improvements, especially there, then you have a bigger effect, you know, on what you actually hear. And so I have to say, you also realize on the motor, and today, I mean, it's very windy outside and rainy, and that's usually like louder than definitely everything, but everything was pretty silent in here, so that's really cool. So there's again a big improvement. You can also use shifting pedals here, by the way, if you want to drive a little bit sportier, or if you are going down a hill and want to use the engine brake for a longer time. So, and they are also pretty crisp, so the whole control input you have on this vehicle with steering here, then also in the going sports mode, like click click, you have a nice clicking feedback. Or when you control the AC unit while driving with the metal knurling, you would characterize this as a premium vehicle from, you know, from all the features. And that's really cool because at least the base CX-30 is not a premium price. Then again, if you think about, you know, 2,000 euros extra for the automatic gearbox, 2,500 extra for the Sky X in comparison to the other petrol engine. Then 2,500 euros extra for the all-wheel drive. Then you easily, you know, add about 7.5K or something, 7K more depending on the market. Yeah, you have to think about what do you really need. The setup we have here at the moment is like the top of the line setup, especially in Europe. Again, in the US would be the 2.5 naturally aspirated engine, so far at least. But is it really worth it? I don't know. I mean, I rather always say go for the better price performance. I really enjoy the automatic gearbox. Problem with the Mazdas is that, you know, with some vehicles, the automatic gearboxes are more efficient. With the Mazda vehicles, usually you save fuel with the manual gearbox, and they're quite cool. You know, the Mazda manual gearboxes are exactly right in the ratio of being crisp, but not offering too much resistance. They give a very natural shifting feeling, so it really resonates very well with natural steering feeling. That's really cool. I love the manual gearbox by Mazda. However, stuck in traffic situations and so on, the automatic gearbox is just more relaxing. So, and what I would probably do is spend the money on the automatic gearbox. Yes, but again, if you want to save money, you'll also be very happy with the manual gearbox because it's, again, a joy to shift it. It's really cool. Maybe it's a thing then, if you're often stuck in traffic, pick the manual gearbox. If not, then leave it with the manual. And yeah, Sky Active X, I mean, it's a little bit more relaxing to drive because you don't have to turn the car that way up in the RPMs. But, you know, in US, I would be happy with the 2.5 NA. And in Europe, I would probably pick now the naturally aspirated petrol engine with 150 horsepower. That's in between. So that might be a good compromise, also price performance wise. And then the all-wheel drive, I think for this car, it's not really necessary, you know. So, unless you're living like in an all-wheel drive car region or something. And I think then you can still keep it up with a good price. Again, you can save the animal skin equipment because that's, you know, negative. As for the comfort is still good, seating comfort here. That's also cool. You don't drive a big SUV, but you already have a good long-term comfort. However, animal skin always makes it stiffer in the bolstering. The fabric more adapts to your body, especially, and, you know, better on long term. And again, most of the equipment is already in the car, so you do not have to exceed the price if you don't want to. Yeah, and talking about the suspension again, another aspect is, of course, if you stick with the 16-inch wheels, it will always be better than the 18. The 18-inch wheels look cooler, yes, no doubt about that. But if you want a more comfortable ride, then stay with the 16-inch wheels, and then you can even out some of this lacking softness, comfort of the suspension. That would be another tip for today. So yeah, quite often you save money and gain some practicability, but quite often it's also that you lose some, you know, hot visuals then. Yeah, that's how it is. But overall, pretty impressive what they brought to the market here. And again, if you have in this top line everything spec'd up, then it's already quite expensive comparison. But if you rather keep in the middle trim or something, and you can drive a very, very decent CX-30 for about 30,000 euros or dollars. And then it's also, if you compare it to the market, especially like again mentioning the VW T-Roc, then it's really a very good price performance deal. And I'm just feeling very cozy and very comfortable in this car. So probably one of the best vehicles Mazda has done so far. And this is something, you know, I would recommend to anyone at this given moment, also looking at the competitor price segment. As I said earlier, probably in Europe then the 150 horsepower engine, and in US just stick with the big displacement as long as we can get it. And now to our conclusion for today with the Mazda CX-30 Skyactiv X. First of all, exterior, a fresh look. Yeah, the big wheel cladding on the side profile, you know, you could argue about that, but overall I think a very contemporary look, and they really have very cool colors. For example, this is Magma Red for today. It's one of the best price performance vehicles on the market, I think, if you keep it rather, low and mid spec, because so much is already in the standard equipment. That's something, Mazda has really done very well. It's very fair to the customer. I think in US I would stick with the 2.5 liter naturally aspirated engine, and in Europe I would probably go with the 150 horsepower petrol engine. The Skyactiv X is of course a little bit more fun, a little bit cooler, more spontaneous to drive, but again it also costs extra. Cool is that it doesn't exceed much in the fuel economy, so you have more power, but you don't have really more consumption. So that's actually a cool aspect about that. On the other hand, the, let's say, normal naturally aspirated petrol engine have the easier technology. So at the moment I would trust it a little bit more as well. Then interior, great build quality. Best is to go with the standard fabric seats, and then also, for example, with this blue leather red, which is an awesome choice definitely, and it also keeps the price then low. Again, most of the equipment is already inside. In US I would go for the mid-trim to get also the blind spot monitor. That's very important. We get that from standard equipment in Europe. Other than that, the car is almost already fully equipped, already at the base version. That's again a really, really cool thing. The offering of space on the interior is also, let's say, quite okay. It's maybe they're a little bit better in some of the competitors. You have a more upright seating position than in the Mazda 3. They share the same platform. Here a little bit less sporty ride, but then again a little bit more comfort, sitting more upright. That's pretty cool. You have not a huge car, but already a very good long-term comfort for the front seats. That's, I think, very good. And then, the overall package, together with the natural driving feeling, how like steering input is. The manual gearbox are also pretty well done. So automatic, if you're often stuck in traffic, for more comfort, and that manual gearbox will also do a good job. So the whole, feeling, connection driver, car and the road is very cool also here in the Mazda. The suspension could be a little bit more comfortable. So if you're okay with the smaller wheel visual, go for the 16-inch wheels. It doesn't look that fancy, but it will give you more riding comfort. Here with the 18-inch wheels, they look cooler, but then again, a little bit less comfort. You have to decide it on your own. The new Kia XCeed, or XCeed, if you want to play with that name a little bit. This is the crossover version of the Kia Ceed. Same platform, but a lot of different parts. Actually, only the front doors are 100% identical. Exterior, interior, and the driving experience. Here today in Autogefühl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars with Thomas. Please enjoy everything of that in full HD, full screen, and full length. Let's go! Well, here in the front of the Kia XCeed, you can see you have this silver meshed grille and also silver accentuations in the lower part. It does remind us of the seat, but it still has an own styling. Here's these curved headlamps. They come with LED as standard in this version. You can see here the front hood is split to have this as a separate element there, and then the hood. Quantum yellow is the color for today, a very unique color definitely. It looks some more golden, and especially in evening sunlight, for example, with not too harsh light, then it really has a golden nuance, so very interesting. The XCeed is a little bit longer, a little bit higher, and also a little bit wider than the normal Ceed. However, they use the same platform, as I said, also the same wheelbase and so on. But again, the exterior, overhangs, dimension and so on, a little bit different. But overall, of course, not too different from the basic concept. Crossover style. Do you like that idea? See also this plastic cladding here. This is typical for this off-roadish look, and it will also continue all over the vehicle. 4.39 m, 14'4" or 173 inches is the length of the Kia XCeed. And you can see here this plastic crossover wheel arches together in this case here with 18-inch wheels. It's an option. You can also go with 16-inch wheels. Depends on what is more important to you, a softer ride or the greater visual factor. So you can decide that on your own. Then we have the chrome window frames and also a bright roof rail right there. For the keyless entry you press this black button right there. Crossover cladding also in the lower part and also at the rear. So, and especially really this falling roof line, it's not, you know, too dramatic, but gives the car some elegance and also a strong shoulder line right there. So overall a very interesting design, gives a little bit more spice if you compare it to the normal seat. A very interesting rear design as well with this special XCeed logo, then pretty slim tail lamps with an interesting LED signature. Then the lower end again has the silver contrast, but these are pure fake exhaust. The real exhaust is underneath, but I think the design is still quite fresh. What's your take? As engines, you have a 1-liter petrol engine with 120 horsepower. This one here, the 1.4-liter with 140 horsepower. Then there's a 1.6-liter with 204 horsepower. They're all turbocharged, and the bigger ones also have a 7-speed DCT optional. And then there's also diesel 1.6-liter with 115 or with 136 horsepower. And new also that the 1.6 petrol can be combined with a plug-in hybrid version and with 141 horsepower system output. That will also be quite exciting. Let's first hear this door closing sound. This sounds very solid, cool. Then the interior, soft touch here at the inside of the doors, also leather red and the inside there, so good build quality. Everything very solid here. Memory seat with 2 saving spots, XCeed floor mats, aluminum pedals. You can get pure fabric seats or these fabric leather red mix, so leather red on the outside, fabric on the inside. Here also with a special edition, belongs to the launch model as well, with this honeycomb style structure with the contrast stitches, and this is indeed fabric. It doesn't look like it, but it is actually. So a very fancy, unique setup. Finally someone is daring. I mean, it's really cool. I think you have to like it, definitely. Also color wise, maybe yellow is not my favorite color, but this yellow fits of course to the exterior color. And Thomas B, our other Thomas here, cameraman, will really love that, because these are the colors of his favorite football club, Borussia Dortmund, and all other Dortmund fans will probably love that color setup as well. So let's get inside, of course, with the shoe tab here today. And the real cool thing here is that we have a, let's say, a luxury feature inbuilt, which is usually not for the segment here. You can see when I shut down the ignition and open the door, then the seat goes backward, and when I flash it here again, then the seat goes forward. It's really easier for the entry and so on. Yeah, you have these beeping sounds all over the place when you have the open door and also the ignition is on. This is a little bit annoying, definitely, but a very cool luxury or comfort feature right there. So now I hit the ignition again, now the beeping is gone. Yeah, can be pretty annoying. Then steering wheel can be controlled manually, up and down, in and out. Everything feels and looks very solid, so pretty satisfied with that. As for the maximum headroom, I'm 1.86 or 6'1". If I put the seat all the way down, there's still plenty of headroom left. I tend to put it a little bit higher so they have a better angle, you know, so it's not falling backwards. I think it's a very comfortable seating position. These fabric seats here stay cool in summer and they are also not too cold in winter. So that's definitely a good choice, and also visual-wise, as I said, very attractive. Again, you have to like the yellow color. I would wish that there would maybe be like different colors. For example, you can also pick like a blue stitching or something. That would be maybe something for the future. Pretty cool. So overall, good feeling overall, and you sit 4 centimeters higher or 1.5 inches higher than in a normal seat. So that gives you a little bit more, you know, elaborated seating position, a little bit more comfort, and I think it works very well. Interior overview, again, good quality materials, soft touch at the top part here, top infotainment system and digital instruments, soon more to that. This part here is also soft touch, separate climate unit still, very easy to control and to see. Heated steering wheel function or heated seat, so straightforward in design. This is what the Golf used to be, and it seems to be that the Kia Ceed somehow takes the place of the Golf as, let's say, the straightforward to use vehicle. Pretty interesting. Manual gearbox here today. There's also a DCT optional. The lower part here has an inductive charging platform, top part here, but you can, well, usually would put in the cable to use the Apple CarPlay, as you can see here. Then lower part with the USB device and more 12-volt power supply, and another USB charging device just for charging. You can also close that if you like. More in the lower part, adaptive cup holders, electric parking brake, and some more space underneath here. Reasonable under the armrest, and the armrest also very well fixed. By the way, this part here and the top is also again soft touch, so everything with the straightforward and good in build quality. Steering wheel, right side for the cruise control, for example, and control something of the digital instruments. Left side mainly for the volume and picking up the phone. And with the digital instruments, you would start analog, and then with a 3.5-inch screen in the middle. Optional then a 4.2-inch screen, a little bit bigger in the middle, and then these are the full digital instruments, 12.3-inch. And on the right side here, you would start with a 5-inch screen. Then there's a bigger one available with 8-inch. That would also include then the Apple CarPlay already. And this is the optional 10.25-inch screen. Is it really necessary? Not exactly. If you mainly use CarPlay, then you'll also be fine with the 8-inch one. And the digital instruments, quite fancy indeed. You can have some digital speedometer or the consumption infos right there. You can also have some GPS input, but it does, or the assistance systems, but even the GPS input, it will not look like that you have the whole screen with digital map. And then in this case, I think you can also just go with the base instrument. I mean, it's cool, it's fancy, but also not a must-have option. And then let's go with this screen. You can see here you have this home menu, for example, for the map, Apple CarPlay, weather, then you have apps like this. Yeah, you can get along with that. You also have hotkeys here in the lower part. If you want to jump to the setup, for example, like this is possible, but you can also use it right here. Then go back right there. This is then the map. You can browse in it, but they still have this strange function where they keep this. I still don't get it why they use this thing there. I don't know, but at least you can zoom and pinch. And when you use here the right side, tune the knob, you can also zoom in and out while driving, for example. But it's not the most convincing one. Most of the time, probably I would still go with the Apple CarPlay. That is the way. Why can I? Huh? Okay, that's. I mean, why doesn't this one get bigger then? I have to go back to the main screen and then do it like this. Yeah, I don't know. Like this, and you can of course use the maps yourself. This one here does have the optional JBL sound system, and it's actually quite decent, so I also like to listen to the music right here. You have to turn down the bass a little bit because this JBL sound system is so bass intensive. And funny thing is, all the manufacturers, when they hand out test vehicles, they put the bass like on +7, +8 because they think, oh, everyone thinks our sound system is cooler and sounds richer then. But no, good sound system is not only about the bass, it's about the clarity in the sound. So you can't fool us. We always check the equalizers before testing the sound systems, guys. So, yeah, I mean, pretty fancy to have the bigger screen. But again, I think you can also save the money and go for the smaller one if you primarily use the CarPlay or the Android Auto. And I also want to show you the rear view camera. Let's put it in the reverse gear. Good resolution, also the helping light adapt when the car is on. And then you also have this beepers here additionally. Yes, the front seat is in a position where it's forward and not backward due to this comfort feature. And still that does not leave us so much legroom. It does somehow work for 4 tall Ls, but when I'm driving in the front, you see I do hit the front seat with my knees already. It's not too bad because it's a soft background. Headroom wise, that's no problem. Still some space left. By the way, hard pack at the rear doors. I think we can live with that as for the price-performance ratio. You can optionally also go for rear seat heating. That's pretty fancy. And well, besides that we don't have too much legroom, the seating position itself is also quite comfortable here in the rear. Then we have Isofix at the outside parts of the seats. We do flip the seats from here already in a 1/3, 2/3 split. Here we also have some cup holders which are non-adaptive, and there's also a ski hatch possibility then if you just want to load things through in the middle part. No chargers here in the middles, just another AC unit, but it's not really controllable, just open and close. So this is awesome. Introduced with the Hyundai Tucson in 2015, I think. See here, I just approached the vehicle from the rear with the key in my pocket and tada, it opens itself even without a foot kick opening mechanism. That's really awesome. So great to have that function. A lot of space underneath. You could also fit a replacement tire. Some measurements right here. The length is at 85 centimeters, width below the cover 37, and then the length with seats flipped to where I would be seating. This is 1.56 meters. And luggage inside, you can see that also in a vertical way, well, barely. So let's see if that closes here with the electric hatch. It should. Let's see. Yeah, it does. So barely fits. So that's pretty close, but good that we can show that to you like this. And look in the, this way here. 12-volt power supply is also inbuilt in the rear. You cannot flip the seats from here, but you have to go around then. And let me just show the full setup. Car's still closed. Here we are when I also flip the other side. Hey, what's up? Joining us here for Thomas's driving lounge in the Kia XCeed. Or XCeed, however you pronounce it. So the 1.4 liter turbo petrol engine in this case with 140 horsepower. We're also going to talk about the general driving features of this vehicle. And let me start with a, let's say, general assessment. This car really sets also some kind of a standard. So something we usually say, for example, from Volkswagen Golf in this segment, this one here also has so many different aspects where you can say, yeah, this is how it's supposed to be, and judging on that level, we can say this or this competitor vehicle is better or worse in certain aspects. But here, so to say, you drive it and control everything and, do your stuff with steering, shifting, and so on, and feeling suspension, and you say like, pretty much everything is just right, So there's nothing we can really say like, oh, have to massively improve this or that. There are some improvements you could do. We're going to talk about that. But the basic impression is just very, very solid, very good. So also a comparison here, the XCeed to the normal seat. Yeah, you sit a little, like seat with C and seat. We're sitting on, is always funny. But indeed, the XCeed to seat is a difference in the seat. Yeah, I hope you got that now. So yeah, I think they are sitting 4 centimeters higher or 1.5 inches higher. Talked about that earlier. It's also somewhat a more, there's a cozier driving feeling, a little bit more relaxed. The suspension is also not too stiff, so it's a good compromise between sportiness and comfort. So it's not too shaky or something. It is, crisp enough, but it's also not harsh that you would feel every bump on the road or so. So I think found a good setup here. They do not offer an adaptive suspension. That's not available. Yet again, you don't have to pay anything extra then for any suspension. I think you can be happy with the normal suspension here. The sport models, the GT, for example, the Ceed GT, that one could use an adaptive suspension that there's more, span between comfort and sportiness. But here the, let's say, non-sport models, I think you're just fine with the normal suspension here as well. The steering wheel is set up in a direct way, so you don't have to steer that much. You have a good feeling, there's no dead zone whatsoever. Noise insulation here at lower speeds is absolutely fine. We'll soon also approach the motorway and see what about noise insulation there. Quality of materials, talked about that earlier, is also very good. So what you feel and control, everything from the input is also very solid. And you have an overall good and cozy, safe feeling in the vehicle. Some of the safety equipment is standard, most of that is optional. We're going to talk about the lane assist when we're on the motorway very soon. We also have the blind spot monitor in here, which we can also show you on the motorway very soon as well. Shifting wise, it's very easy to shift, quite long the shifting lever, but the wheels click in a very satisfying way, and they also don't have much resistance. Yet again, not totally free floating, so I think they also found a good solution right there. The optional dual clutch transmission would be good for more relaxation in traffic and so on, that you don't have to give it so much clutch. Yeah, I mean, in the first gear when starting, you have to use quite a lot of clutch or quite a lot of gas, so you don't stall it. You have to get used to that. That's different from vehicle to vehicle. Then in the higher gears, this is not such a problem anymore, but you definitely get used to it. So you can buy this one as a manual gearbox. Won't be that bad, not at all. Of course, again, automatic transmission always gives you a little bit more driving comfort. Suspension, again, yeah, I mean, if you would have an adaptive suspension, it would bring you more comfort, I think. So suspension-wise, again, all good, but not that I would say it has the best suspension in segment. That's maybe something they could still improve. And as I said earlier, with this vehicle, you really have to search for things where you could suggest them to still improve things. Most of the other stuff is really already very well done. As for fuel economy, you can score some realistic figures of 7 liters on 100 kilometers, or 34 mpg US, 41 mpg UK. A little bit worse, so a little bit less mpg, or a little bit like 7.5 liters on 100 kilometers. When you are driving a little bit faster on the motorway, who would do that? Or when you drive a little more city traffic and so on. So that depends. Yeah, not the best fuel economy, but also not the worst. So that's somehow also standard, so to say. This could be a little bit better. Everything else, really very cool. And one thing I like best is the straightforward design of the commands. So when I want to activate the seat heating or the steering wheel heating, this is so easily done, with the separate buttons. And again, yes, thank you so much that we still have separate buttons here. And I don't want to do everything with the touchscreen, even though we have, already year 2020 now. This is not really necessary, not really, not that useful, Bought this engine here, 1.4 GDI, TGDI turbo. So we now can do some, that's a little bit of trick. Let me get out this working zone here first, so I can show you then something of the acceleration. This engine version here, I think I would not go for a weaker one, because then when you need to do some acceleration on the motorway, it can be maybe a little bit too weak. The stronger one will be a little bit more fun and can be a little bit handier in some situations, yes. This one is somehow sufficient, but especially when being in first gear or when starting overtaking maneuvers on the motorway, sometimes I was thinking, a little bit more punch would be nice, Again, still okay, but I would not go for the weaker version. Then, and I was driving alone and without luggage and so on. But if the engine would be way weaker, then there's a version below that. I think then you should at least go for this one here. So here on the motorway, first at 80 kilometers an hour, so 45 miles. Still reasonable. As for the noise insulation, we can also put in the 6th gear then. This is rather than for rolling and keeping the fuel consumption low. In this case, we only have the normal cruise control in this very test vehicle here. You can activate it here at the steering wheel then. But it's doing also a good job. Adaptive cruise control is always a nice option, of course. The blind spot monitor I can soon show you when someone is next to us. But here again, also from the rolling noise you hear, I think they've done a good job here. And since we have this XCeed model, which sits a little bit higher, I also have the feeling that I have better overview. There is a small rear window, but since it's very well in the line of sight with the normal back mirror, I can see very well who's behind us, so it's no problem. The A pillar is quite flat and the B pillar is quite thick. So yes, the blind spot monitor is something you should go for, definitely, to even out this, thing from this big B pillar. So that would be definitely coming handy. As for the lane keeping assist, by the way, so it activates itself after startup and also activates itself when shut down the vehicle and start it again, even though you have turned it off. Yeah, what about that? So we'll stay a little bit more on the motorway because we had this working zone here so far. I want to get out of the working zone still. And at the moment here, when there's like this white line and the yellow line, the lane keep, now it's sitting in again, now. But it has obviously some kind of a problem when there's not like a white line on both sides. The good thing is, if it's annoying you, then you can turn it off at any time. Here, for example, and now it's not activated. I think soon we have it activated again, and I can show you, because it does keep you in the lane actively. So now still blinking. Come on, now it's there. So, and now you can see here, don't do this at home. So this is then to show you that the car is keeping us in the lane. Here then, count the steering a little bit, but also tells me don't lose grip of the steering wheel. Yeah, there we go. So I think it's a good system. Sometimes it can be a little bit annoying when the lanes are very narrow, and so it's not the worst, also not the best configuration I found with lane keeping assist. But the cool thing is really, and you hardly have that nowadays anymore, you can deactivate it just with one button here at the left side. And that's again about this vehicle. So easy and straightforward to use. I really love that. That's so cool. Wait a minute. That's an XCeed as well, in grey. That's funny. It's a quite new vehicle. I think I have never seen it on the like a customer vehicle on the roads yet. And now, just when we're filming this one, we see one. That's quite funny. Yeah, why not? That one also has the panoramic roof. I see it open, by the way. So there's this option as well. We do not have that option, so we have it closed, a little bit, black and so on. But what I also want to say is that everything feels quite cozy. So seating position is really good. I don't experience any back pain also when you're driving like a longer way and so on. So when I'm really thinking about which of the normal compact vehicles to recommend, these put-up versions, these crossover versions are again good for comfort, and they don't change the driving characteristics that majorly if you compare it to the other ones. A little bit like, for example, Golf and T-Roc. But I would say between Golf and T-Roc, the distance is greater than between Ceed and XCeed, for example, But I really have to say, this is a very, very good compact vehicle, and the driving part just really stressing that. The digital instruments we have here are also very interesting. Is it a must-have? Not necessarily, because you cannot put the real GPS map in there. So yeah, I could also live with a smaller screen that would. Yeah, that's happening sometimes. So I was approaching the traveler and I was not really stalling the engine, but the start-stop function went on, and then the engine was stalled by the car itself for a moment. That's a little bit, unpleasing. Happened quite a lot of times. maybe better with the automatic transmission. So now before we're going all the way down in 50, third gear. Third gear is not really proper for 50. So let's see, let those guys overtake. We have a little bit down in situations now, but from 50 in second gear and then go to third, let's go. That's 100 with a little bit downhill. So you can see, yeah, I have to push this one a little bit, but still okay from the performance, you know. And now at 100 kilometers an hour or 60 miles an hour, again, still a good noise insulation. So there's not massive amount of rolling tire noise or wind noise. So we also have a good result in this case. And again, it's not really punishing you when you're driving like a long motorway period and so on. And I just returned from the US again, and it's always you drive so much highway hours there, because distances are just longer than, for example, in Europe, especially in Germany. That how a car performs on the motorway is really a very essential point for a lot of customers indeed. Very interesting. So I'll also keep the speed limit here, because in these working zones, you know, traffic fines can always be very high. This bigger screen, by the way, also looks fancy here in our driving moderation, definitely. However, I would probably go just with the what's that? Okay, that's new. Okay, and then not sure why they've used that pane in, sometimes strange situations. So the smaller screen would also do just fine. You can control the Apple CarPlay over that screen, and that's the most important for this vehicle. So again, I think this is also an option you could theoretically leave. Good feeling in the brakes also. No problem about that. This seems to be all with the Passat facelift, since you can see the rear LED lamps there. They are also newly done. 2-liter TDI. We'll stop right there. Yeah, I mean, different driving situations we had here today with the Kia XCeed, and I have to say, very well done. It's definitely, among the best compact vehicles we had so far. I mean, there are some things maybe that, like super expensive, high-class premium vehicles would maybe offer additionally. But what would that be besides double the price? Now let's think about the Mercedes A-Class, okay, where you literally pay double the price than for this one. And the question is, why? Yeah, I mean, if you want a high horsepower version, like a AMG something, okay, Mercedes does offer this MBUX system with a natural voice input. That is, not being offered here. But the build quality is really good here. I mean, and you get like interesting materials. You have like a very attractive seating setup here, also with sustainable materials. So, I mean, why is the A-Class double the price than this one? Besides like brand, image thing and so on. I really can't say. This is here built at a very, very high level. And again, being the XCeed, a little bit more expensive than the normal Ceed, but then again, already with a little bit more extra equipment, I think it's still quite a nice price-performance deal. What do you think? And now to our conclusion for today with the Kia XCeed. Well, first of all, it's a fresh exterior. This crossover look does work with the Ceed platform, yes, especially in this golden color, something pretty unique. And also from the exterior features, you already see a solid build quality that continues on the interior then, so really very well built. So hardly anything we can really criticize there, and a very straightforward design that is of course very, very cool. That means you can control everything in a very easy and straightforward way, still with a lot of separate buttons. I really like that. Not everything needs to be done in the infotainment system. Optionally, you can go for a lot of infotainment options, but you'll also be fine with the lower spec versions. So to keep the price still lower a little bit. And this is about 5K extra if you compare it to the normal Kia Ceed, but it already comes with more standard equipment. So overall, for example, German price 21 to 34K depending on the equipment and the engine and so on. And I think you can still score a very decent price performance ratio, and to me also one of the best price performance ratios in the compact segment or compact hatch segment overall at the moment. This little bit higher riding, 4 centimeters or 1.5 inches or seating position is, I think, very good. So it gives a little bit more comfort without giving you much less fun in driving or something. So I think it's still a good compromise, and I think this crossover version will also be quite successful. Fuel economy could be a little bit better, suspension maybe also a little bit better. Then again, if you're not into the visuals that much, you could go for 16-inch wheels instead of the 18 one, and then you also have a little softer riding quality. Overall, I think a very, very solid performance here. Pretty liked it. What about you? This is the updated Toyota CHR, and here on Autogefühl, with Jonas behind the camera and Thomas in front of the camera, we're going to take a detailed look of this recent facelift, which did change some exterior stuff, also new interior features, and also new hybrid and updated engines, which will be very interesting because we go in detail, I can promise to you. Actually, the Toyota developer told me they invested 50 million euros in this update of the car. What have they done with that money? Let's find out together in exterior, interior, and the driving experience here on Autogefühl in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! Yes, a facelift also means changes on the exterior, as it is called. And by the way, please subscribe if you haven't done so far. And thanks again for all long-term subscribers. Here, what have they done? So they made the styling a little bit more bold in the front. That means here the lower grille is a little bit wider. Then the fog lamps, they went to the outside here. And also you can get either this contrasting spoiler lip or it comes in vehicle color depending on the trim. Then also the headlamps changed a little bit from the signature. LED is standard, both front and rear actually. And you can see this is the daytime running light in the top part, then the main LED unit right there. And this one here, the daytime running light, changes to the turning indicator. So this is basically one unit, so also quite interesting. It looks a little bit fresher, a little bit stronger than before. By the way, this color, which we on Autogefühl call Thomas Blue when it's a strong blue tone, Toyota calls it Nebula Blue. 4.39 m, 14'4" or 173 inches is the length of the Toyota CHR. So small or compact, depending on the definition, crossover or small SUV, again, also depending on your definition. And it has a really, screaming out side profile. That's also why people buy it. So 43% of all customers buy it because of the design. You can also get a dual tone roof as this one here in black, but now available since the facelift is also that you can get a metal gray contrasting roof color that might also fit here to the blue, or Nebula Blue exterior color. Very interesting. And here, of course, the most spectacular falling roof line. Yeah, this will limit the trunk, of course, also with this huge wing right here, but that's also what makes the design screaming out. Here, integrated handles for the rear doors. We, of course, go in depth on the interior very soon. Then you either get 16-inch wheels, aluminum already, or those ones optional, the 18-inch, then also included in higher trim levels. This trim level here would be style selection, as it's called in Germany, but there are different names for this trim also depending on the market. And the hybrid logo, if you have the hybrid, soon more to the engines, because really interesting updates have been happening there. What do you think actually about the side profile here? And let me already tell you something about suspension. There's one base suspension, so you cannot pick any different or adaptive suspension, but they have massively upgraded the suspension for this facelift here for all models. But the 2-liter hybrid gets the most elaborate hardware update as for suspension, and we'll go also in detail later on when we drive the car and also tell you more about that. So, you know, I'm always totally honest with you guys, and I really have to say, when I saw the CHR for the very, very first time, I would think like, what the hell is this? But I always have to say, sometimes those cars grow a little bit on you, and now, meanwhile, I rather think, yeah, it's definitely still special, but I also like it when cars are not boring, you know? But definitely this is splitting opinions quite a lot. What do you think? Here now in the facelift, what have they done? There's a new black element here on the top part, this, you know, second wing, so to say, that goes all the way from right to left or from left to right over the vehicle, and also a new signature here for the tail lamps. They also come with LED technology, and they also feature a cascading indicator light, also quite interesting. In the lower part, this part is also a little bit bolder, like in the front, and then there are those new chrome elements, at least for the 2-liter hybrid versions. It has some kind of fake exhaust form, let's say, but I wouldn't exactly say it's a real fake exhaust. But I mean, at least they don't put a real, you know, real or fake exhaust here. The real one is underneath. Yeah, so slight changes here also for the facelift in the rear. Still, you know, the best thing about this car, definitely the color for today. What's your take? As for engines, you start with a 1.2-liter petrol turbo engine with about 120 horsepower and just about 11 seconds to 1 kilometers or 62 miles an hour in the acceleration. Then you have the 1.8-liter hybrid, made to a naturally aspirated engine, also around 120 horsepower and also somewhat the same acceleration figure. That one also has an update. And then there's the new 2-liter hybrid, which you see here with about 180 horsepower. And this one is 3 seconds faster in the acceleration, so around 8 seconds is the acceleration figure right there. So that's definitely a massive power output difference. So, and what's also interesting about the battery technologies. First of all, this car is mainly bought as hybrid. So yes, there's the turbo entry engine, but mainly bought here with this combination naturally aspirated petrol engine together with the hybrid system. Inbuilt hybrid system at Toyota, and it's not about the pure electric range, because the batteries themselves, they have about 1 to 2 kilowatt hours of capacity, and that's not much. It's more of using this buffer, so not the longest range, but most electric moments possible when using it as a buffer. Recuperation then again, you start rolling, you are in electric mode, or maybe get off the gas, then you're in the EV mode once again. So this hybrid system indeed works quite well. No matter if you go for the bigger hybrid here or the smaller one, we always had so far about 5.5 liters on 1 kilometers as for the fuel consumption. And that's about always more than 40 mpg US and even more than 50 mpg UK. So it's actually pretty decent. So an interesting is, battery technology wise, the 1.8-liter hybrid now gets a new lithium-ion battery. That's a little bit more responsive and the newer technology, and also it is lighter because this car got a little bit heavier. It has more base trim, more functions, safety systems, and also higher trim. Then they want to save some weight, especially with the smaller engines. Whereas the bigger engine has more power, and then they said, yeah, it's not too bad if there's a little bit more weight. And this one here still gets the nickel metal hydride battery. It's a different battery technology. Usually the lithium ion is the more powerful, lighter and so on, more elaborated one. But it also has a corporate reason. They went for both technologies because they developed both technologies. And so they also want to use them. It's more like a utilizing reason, because spending so much money on development and so on, and also about the resources. You need different resources for both batteries, and so they want to, share that a little bit. Very interesting. I would have expected that this one here also gets the updated new lithium-ion battery, but Toyota at least says that fuel economy-wise, it doesn't make such a big difference. It's just that the lithium-ion battery shall be a little bit more responsive from the get-go. However, this one in here in the bigger engine, as this one has a bigger horsepower output anyway, will of course still be more powerful. That's also what the figures show. but definitely a very interesting insight, I think, into the, this decision making inside the corporations and which exact parts to pick. This is the car key. By the way, CHR stands for Coupe High Rider. Yeah, some naming guys played in the kindergarten there, I guess. So, yeah, but you also have a keyless entry. You can push your thumb out there. At the moment, the car is complaining because the ignition is on. Then you can also open it again and hear the door closing sound. That sounds a little bit weird. So, yeah, obviously didn't pay attention to the door closing sound. But what they paid attention to is now more soft touch materials. For example, also soft touch at the inside of the doors. That's new. This one, we've seen it so far, but I think it's really cool here in this trim. It's a hard material, but it's structured. And also then with blue accentuations right there. So it looks really cool, feels cool. Then a leather red right there. So really upgrade the materials. Slim door pocket, not so well to use. Then the rest of the interior is also very interesting here with those blue decor elements right there. And then a blue or purple leather red. So it's also cool. So really good materials they put right there. Steering wheel can be controlled up and down and also in reach. I'll show that to you very soon. Infotainment system upgrade, soon more to that. Then as for the seats, you start with a fabric seat as base if you want to go for the lower spec, but they are also just fine. This one would be an upgrade then here with Alcantara on the inside. On the outer parts, I did not get the exact information yet, but some should be leatherette, some should be real animals. So at least the main thing is Alcantara. But as I said, the pure fabric seats will also do just fine. So what about the comfort? I'm going to take a seat right here. And you don't sit too high, so you don't exactly get a true SUV feeling. But it's also not the same feeling as in a normal passenger vehicle in the compact hatch or something. So you sit a little bit higher, just a little bit, so more than crossover I like. But the seating position is actually quite comfortable. So those quite sporty looking seats, they offer you a very decent comfort. I like that. And even if you put the seat in the lowest position here with the electric support, with 1.86 m or 6'1", I still get some decent headroom. I'm really feeling quite cozy here in this vehicle. Manual setup then here for the steering wheel, up and down, and also in reach. And that's easily done right there. And yeah, there's a front whole cockpit. This comes really far towards you. You have to get used to that. But so, also, with the blue accentuations right there, everything looks a little bit spaceship-alike, so to say. And again, due to those upgraded materials, it here and there already got some kind of premium feel. Then again, price is higher than before, but there's no true naked base trim anymore, so it's still somewhat a fair price, I think. By the way, here we also have the optional JBL sound system, so we can also soon test a little bit of that sound. By the way, I turned off the ignition now, and so I can also better show you the keyless entry function. So when you even in proximity, it's already enough, and then the side mirrors actually flip in. And look at that, how well they're aligned with the car now. So they're really protected, so that's pretty cool. And then when you get closer with your hand again, like here, the inside, then it opens again, the side mirrors flip over. But it was really, interesting that I didn't even have to touch it. Like, huh? And now I had, but the first one was spooky, wasn't it? Now the interior overview. What's definitely standing out is this infotainment system. And yeah, it's really very interesting. It really stands out. But that's also, you can better control it than wire touch, although it still has a lot of buttons right here. And yeah, that's the biggest news here in the interior. Finally, the Apple CarPlay or Android Auto support also for the European Toyota cars now being upgraded in all the new models or facelift upgrades and so on when they come. So that's definitely really good. And you see they also use most of the space they have right here. And let's just test the audio system here, the JBL. And Yeah, it's actually definitely better than the base sound system. Actually quite nice. It's not that I would say like, oh, best ever, but actually quite decent also from the clarity of the sound. So that's nice. And well, this is how you should use this system with the CarPlay or the Android Auto, because the rest of the software, looking here at the normal GPS, yeah, it looks quite outdated still, and see the responsiveness also not given. Also the route guidance was not the best as we thought. So the rest of the system here is really not that well to handle. So yeah, let's go for the Apple CarPlay Android Auto and leave it like this. So if we take a little bit broader perspective again, we see a lot of floating lines and the interior really comes towards us. So yeah, it's quite, sensual and extravagant. So nothing boring, definitely. Is it maybe a little bit too much? Please tell me. And then we can see that we have the climate unit here. You can still control it while driving. Also looks good as for the visualization in there. There's seat heating available also for both seats. There's even heated steering wheel available, by the way. So the steering wheel itself, so that function is left next to the steering wheel in the lower area. But other than that, yeah, it looks a little bit overloaded here. The steering wheel doesn't look too much, too premium. Also here with those, glossy black inlets. Not sure how they look like over time, but it still does the job definitely. And the adaptive cruise control is set here at the lower part. And interesting is that adaptive cruise control is standard equipment. Also the autonomous emergency brake, standard equipment. So they have really good assistance systems from the get-go. And here in the middle part then here with the instruments, they have actually, maybe I get a little bit lower with the steering wheel. So like this, and on the right side you have the normal speedometer. Middle part you have the digital view for your music, for example, or also for digital speed and so on. Traffic sign recognition also standard. And on the left side you then have this meter where you see when you're recuperating or when you're in the less fuel consuming mode, and then when you really boost up the power. So what else is there? We have, of course, a lower middle console left, and that is where we have the normal USB support. But then, where you put your phone, they rather thought about that when there's no cable. So, yeah, that's a problem a little bit, because, I'm not sure if that might be falling out at some point. You can also put it in the lower part, but even there. So the phone storage is not the best they found there. There's a big cup holder in the front. And then there's this automatic shifting lever. They use planetary gearboxes, by the way. So they listen, when you listen to them, it's the same way as for a CVT gearbox, like this, when you just accelerate. Then there's a electric handbrake. Then there's an EV mode button. What's that for? Well, the maximum range is about 2 kilometers pure electric when the battery is fully charged. But again, it's not about it really. But you still would use this button when you're, for example, parking in and out and maybe in your basement garage and really want to be sure that it's in the EV mode. Then there's another very deep cup holder right there. And last but not least, this armrest cover, which also has a nice soft touch, also with a different tone. Here you can wobble it around just a little bit, but underneath you have some decent storage. Oh, and by the way, we do have a fire extinguisher in this car. It's not because it would be especially dangerous from the battery system or so. Yeah, Belgian fans here will know why, because that's actually Belgian law, and those cars here are registered to the Toyota European headquarters in Belgium, in Brussels. That's also why it needs to have this one here in that. So now those integrated rear handles, and the first things I thought of those was in the Alpha 147. Holger used to drive that one. So, and then here we go. And the insert, then this is all hardback. There's no change than before. But here again we got this interesting structure, and you see how small the whole window is. That's of course blocking the view, especially of the rear passengers. Yeah, I think we have to live with that. And then you have some interesting cup holders here at the inside of the doors. In this case, for this trim, you also have those Alcantara seats on the rear passenger side. So also beautiful job. Isofix at the outer seats each, but there's also a middle seat available. I will also test seat this one now. And yeah, it looks a little bit cramped, but how cramped is it really? Of course, no changes here in the facelift, and I can't sit here as a tall adult as I would be driving. Yeah, I touched the front seat. It does exactly fit. Also headroom wise, it does exactly fit. No more, no less, so to say. So, you know, that's not the most unique feature about this car, but it still works somehow with 4 adults. As for the middle seat, it's it's not too hard, and I can sit here, but when 2 big people are next to me, or even like, 3 of my size next to each other, yeah, that would get a little bit close. So, I mean, you can still use it, that's okay, but nothing plentiful. Then you flip the seat already from here. Of course, we'll take a detailed look from trunk. There's no middle armrest here whatsoever. I think we can definitely live with that. So it looks even more cramped from the outside than it actually is on the inside. So I think we can still be satisfied. Now to the luggage compartment, and yeah, it's a really interesting hatch, definitely, and it's also quite heavy to close it again, but of course still okay. Here on the inside you can also grab it, that you don't, make your hands dirty when it's like really dirty on the outside. Then I would probably recommend to remove this cover. Yeah, I mean, it's still useful for sound dampening while driving, but of course if you need to transport some more luggage, can make sense to put it out. This one here, about 380 liters of capacity in the normal versions, 1.2 and 1.8. Here in the bigger hybrid, just 360 liters, so you lose a little bit. And then this lower part here, you have some more storage that can be used quite well too. And then here they store the normal car battery. You also need that with a hybrid. Even with electric vehicles, you often need the normal car battery, for example, just to start up the car. So here we go. And then just to show you, when I put a backpack in here, yeah, that gets closed. The trunk still does close somehow, but yeah, so that still works. But you see, it gets really, really close to this top cover right there. And as for the measurements, we have in length about 77 centimeters. In width, here in the front, is a little bit more than a meter. And then it gets less than a meter if we continue on a little bit further. And the height right here to below the cover is just 35 centimeters. That's of course very, very close. And the overall total height would be, rather something like, about 60 centimeters if you put that one out. But you see, all this area here is really, really flat. So the height is the main problem, definitely, as for the trunk capacity. And if we flip a little bit off those seats, let's go with that one. And I also can do it on the other side. So you can see we leave the seats as we would be driving as rather tall people. Here we go. So it's a 2/3, 1/3 split. Then the maximum length we have available here. So that's 1.58 meters. So yeah, so the trunk height is definitely a limiting factor. That's what you pay for with the, more screaming out design. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge with the Toyota CHR in this facelift. And the cool thing about the inbuilt hybrid is you start in EV mode, but as soon as you accelerate a little bit more, that's the combustion engine hopping on, and it depends on the status of the battery. If it's a little bit fuller, then it's a little bit longer EV and so on. And it constantly changes, and you usually stay in this hybrid driving mode. As I said earlier, when you have enough capacity available, you can click this EV mode. At the moment unavailable, but if there's more capacity at the moment available, sorry, not the capacity, like more power in the battery available at the moment, then you can also use this EV mode a little bit longer if you want to induce that especially. Here on Estrada do Guincho, near Cascais, Portugal, such a beautiful area, such a beautiful beach, and always love to be here for car presentations. So there are actually 3 major things they upgraded here with the facelift of the Toyota CHR. And that basically counts for all models available. But I will also go into the specifics of the 2-liter hybrid engine very soon. So first thing is, they worked on the noise insulation. So, and also less vibrations from the engines, better dampening and so on. And indeed, it's more silent here in this interior. It really feels refined, and Yeah, some kind of premium feel, definitely. It resonates. Well, what a beautiful view always, but take care of the cyclist first and then of the view. So it really resonates with the upgraded materials and so on. So noise insulation upgrade, that's the first thing. And we also drove a longer route on the motorway yesterday evening. And yeah, I mean, at 120 kilometers an hour, there were some wind noise from the A-pillar, because that stands really, quite far away maybe from the side mirror, but that was quite normal. Overall, it was also on the motorway very relaxing with this car, especially about 100 kilometers, 60 miles an hour. That was really perfect. Then the second thing is they upgraded the steering feeling. So before it was quite numb, and here it's still light, but it has more connection to the road, so it feels more natural. So they really worked on that, and that's, maybe it's just a small change, but it so much contributes to the driving fun. There's no real dead area of this steering wheel in the angle, and you just have a natural steering feeling, and that's what I really love when cars have that. Especially nowadays with all those assistance systems. Some cars tend to have artificial feeling steering wheels or steering feelings, and that's not the case here. So that's a great update, definitely. And third major upgrade is the suspension. So before it was somewhat okay, but even it felt a little bit rough at times. You rather thought, oh, it's a very sporty suspension, but it was not that comfortable in situations where you had some bumps on the road and so on. Now, really great update, more comfort than before. That again also counts for all the models, but the 2-liter hybrid gets the most extensive care about the new suspension. So a little bit different hardware here even for this suspension. And I talked to the engineer earlier, and he has already driven the updated 1.8 suspension as well, so for the 1.8 hybrid. And he said, yes, also better, but this one here maybe even a little notch better. Here now, acceleration. Yeah, it's really hard with this car. I mean, the acceleration is 3 seconds faster than before from standstill to 100, but still, it's not a super fast car. You have to be aware of that. But just, to conclude, so those 3 major changes I just mentioned, really significant for the car, and those together, better steering feel, less noise, and better suspension, really account for a more elaborate feeling in this vehicle. So that's really cool. So hardly that we see that we have some facelifts and there are so many significant changes you can feel while driving. Most often, they change headlamps and that's it, and the driving is exactly the same, but here really a significant change and positive change in driving you feel. Now, what about this high displacement? Again, you say there's no replacement for displacement, or in Germany we say Hubraum ist durch nichts zu ersetzen. Yeah, that's the German lesson for today. And the thing is also that with higher displacement, it doesn't mean it's less eco-friendly or something. So those downsized engines are often just for less fuel consumption on paper, but not for real. So that can be a problem at times. And also with BMW X5 PHEV went from 2-liter to 3-liter, up actually higher displacement and the same efficiency. Very interesting. So, however, here with the bigger space and also 60 horsepower more, you feel also a little bit more elaborate and refined. So the engine is not that stressed. You don't have to push it that hard that often. And that's really cool, that makes the drive a little bit more refined and calm, especially if you keep it here low in the RPMs. And that's also where this hybrid system is actually primarily aiming at. So it's still not a racing car, and with those planetary gearboxes, when you keep them at lower speeds, they have like the very smooth transitions. Everything is really cool and calm, collected. That's also what makes a lot of fun. Then you have those EV driving moments when you leave the throttle, or when you recuperate, when you brake, and so on. That really fits together. Just when you hammer it really hard, then you again have this effect that the RPMs go screamingly high and so on, and yeah, that's not a pleasant thing to hear, definitely. And I will also induce it as soon as I can overtake this Sprinter, who's probably going also to cover the rocker. Yeah, but still, I mean, it's good to have a little bit more power under the hood. Really looking forward for a later test also with the new 1.8, with the updated one. We have tested that one earlier, but then with the old battery. So there's now, you know, this new battery, and now we can, I think, overtake. Yeah, let's see. So there you heard it, and that was about like 55 to 90 kilometers. I had to reduce the speed right now again because there was a new speed limit. So you see, that would have been a bigger problem with the smaller hybrid engine. So that was better here now, and here now in those corners, really good steering feel again. So the suspension is definitely less rough than before, and the car is so much more comfortable. But yet again, I wouldn't say it feels less sporty. So it just feels more refined, and just because it's rough doesn't mean it's sporty, you know. It's not a sports car. It has this very aggressive look, yes, but the main purpose is rather to, you know, deliver you this very calm and cool hybrid driving feeling. And again, great fuel economy with 5.5 liters or more kilometers for both hybrid engines. So you see, it doesn't make any big difference if you go for the small or the bigger one as for the efficiency. And so 43 mpg US and 51 mpg UK, so really decent figures. But cool thing also that we had that also with the Toyota Camry, with a way bigger car. I think it was the 2.5 hybrid. So although it's a smaller and lighter vehicle here, they all seem to consume almost the same, those Toyota hybrids, no matter which size they are. This is also like a very interesting finding. So pretty cool what they have done with the upgrade of this vehicle, no doubt about that. Also like they have the digital speedometer there, of course, in line of sight. One downside of the CHR is always that you have a limited view, especially to the rear and the rear sides. So yeah, that's the design on the exterior, so pretty limited. Therefore, it's even more important. Most of the assistance systems are already included, but then again, the blind spot monitor, where you have then the yellow flashing sign there in the side mirrors, that's really important to have that. So you should go for that option, one of the few options you should tick. Other than that, the base equipment is already quite good with this car, and it's indeed quite relaxing, quite refined. And although it looks a little bit cramped on the outside, it's like, do tall people really sit in there, and can they find a comfortable seating position? Can they even take a longer journey? And say here with those sporty seats, especially if you have the Alcantara or fabric, the base fabric surface, that also adds so much more to the comfort. If you would have the animal skin option, so leaving all ethical thoughts aside, the whole surface is stiffer and slick, and that also reduces the seating comfort, definitely. And you especially feel that when you drive the car for a longer time. It's also very interesting as for that finding. So Jonas is even a little bit taller than me. How are you feeling on those seats?
Quite good.
Yeah? It's quite good?
I like them.
So we have still a long way ahead of us today. But I think at the moment we wouldn't be afraid. And sometimes we have like compact cars where we would say like, 2 more hours in this car. It's cool for short routes, but 2 more hours now. But here it's actually quite good. So not afraid of anything right here. And by the way, here when I'm going, especially downhill now, EV mode is active. And even if I'm on the throttle now, again just a little bit, then sometimes it goes off, sometimes it goes on, and that's what the car does all the time. It switches all of the time. But then again, some recuperation when I'm a little bit on the brakes, then it's used as a buffer again, and the combustion engine does not have to be on. That's where the car is saving fuel, definitely. So you can also put the shifting lever to the left and then go to manual gear mode, push it forward to shift up, push it backward to shift down. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. So again, another vehicle where they mix it up. it should be the other way around, like, push to the front, shift down, and push backwards to shift up. That's what they do in rally sports as well, Here they did it the other way around. Why do they offer this option here? Well, mainly when you're going downhill for a long time and want to use the engine brake. However, not that significant for this vehicle, because there's also the recuperative braking used. I see then this charge arrow on the left side, and then when the recuperation is being all used, then also the normal brakes are being applied. You can also have a special gauge, the digital gauge in the middle part, this so-called energy monitor. Then I see when is the battery giving power to the wheels, when it's the combustion engine giving power to the wheels, when it's the combustion engine giving power to the battery, or when there's recuperative braking from the wheels to the battery. And it is constantly changing, and you shouldn't pay too much attention to it while driving, because it can be at times a little bit confusing. So in this case, you should just let the car do what it does, If you, I'm not sure if you've seen the fuel economy here at the moment, just for a very short time. Oh, now they want to go left here probably. Of course, we went uphill now all the way. This of course boosts the fuel consumption. Now we soon go downhill again, and then this goes back again. And especially there, we can use more recuperative braking for the battery and so on. The fuel economy will be especially good with this vehicle if you are in the city, because then you more have this stop and go situations. This is really helpful then for that. And on the motorway, when you go constant speeds and higher speeds, then the hybrid does not have the big advantage if you compare it also to the normal turbo engine or so. So the hybrid really plays out its advantages inside the city. That you have to know. So the city fuel economy will be way different from the turbo to the hybrids, whereas the motorway fuel economy won't be that different. However, you know that you're also on the motorway, now for example going downhill, all the way EV mode, a little bit recharging also. So even on the motorway you have the situations where you leave the throttle, let it roll a little bit, maybe you hit the brakes just a little bit, and then you also there have some EV moments, how I call them. That's what we have here at the moment, for example. Now it's off again, and at some point it doesn't make so much sense to talk about it even longer, but it's just interesting that it constantly changes. And I mean, it indeed works. The fuel economy figures do suggest that, and so our average fuel economy figure I stated earlier was indeed with high motorway percentage, which we did yesterday already, and that also speaks for the system that it still works somehow on the motorway. But of course you have to look at the total mix then overall. So definitely pretty cool what they did with this car, with this facelift. Quite significant as for the upgrade, as for the changes. Especially, my favorite is this new suspension upgrade. Looking forward to a test later on how good they did it in the production process for the 1.8 hybrid, and then also with the lithium-ion battery. So if you are interested in seeing that review also at the later stage, if we should order this car with the 1.8 and with lithium-ion battery, and also then with that suspension, how that feels, and put it in the comments. And we also know that more people are interested to see that, so that's definitely also helpful for us. You can always also state in the comments if there's any car you still want to see from us to review, then state it in comments. And of course, always use the YouTube search. Just put in Autogefühl, Skoda Kamiq, for example. Then just Autogefühl and then the brand name and the model name. And usually you will find most of the cars you seek. And if not, then put it in the comments or say last review of a BMW 5 Series, 3 years ago. Can you do a renew one? They've upgraded the infotainment system and some other changes. Can you do that, for a new run? Then just state your wishes right there. That's we're here for you. So that's what we do. Rain has picked you up. Also, that even on sunny days, that can happen here at Cabo de Roca. So that's the most western point of continental Europe, which we have just passed right there. Very beautiful site. If you're here, for a touristic visit, you should definitely go there. Maybe with a rental car or something. And of course, very beautiful roads here too. And you maybe also picked up here on the driving part this new silence in the interior, really good, really refined, and that again fits to this EV mode. And that's also why most people probably go with the hybrid, because it just fits to the overall character of the vehicle. So very interesting insight here for you today. Hope you enjoyed it very much with the CHR facelift here for you. And of course, this fits best to the car. We close it with some EV driving moments, and the battery is not too big, so that should be, when I look at this, now we also like almost 2/3 of the battery is full, and that goes quite quickly then, when we're going downhill now. And now all the way the combustion engine is off, and that will again bring down our fuel economy to the normal average we had earlier then. So it's always very interesting to drive this car with the hybrid systems. And now what about some motorway driving and the final acceleration of this vehicle? Let's accelerate onto the motorway, although it's going a little bit downhill, but let's see what this car is capable of. Well, that's 100 kilometers an hour or 60 miles an hour. At the end with a little slight help from being downhill. And what's also interesting, wind noise wise, yes, it's really more refined, especially at lower speeds. And bear in mind, when they built this one, for the most car markets, 100 kilometers an hour or 60 miles an hour will be the most significant one. And this is really fine. This is absolutely silent, really cool, and difference here in the facelift if you compare it to the predecessor, when you want to call it that way, especially at lower speeds. And here at 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, still, that's pretty cool. Not sure if you picked up the blind spot monitor when the car passed us here now. But the thing is, when I accelerate to 120, and we can also show you that acceleration here from 100 to 120. Plop, that's it. So you see, that is significantly better also than with the 1.8 hybrid, but still not, like really fast stuff. And now at 120 kilometers an hour, the wind noises pick up quite a bit. I'm not sure if you can also hear that on camera, especially here now, like from this area. Not sure why, and that's obviously not like the main focus they paid in general when building this vehicle to be suitable for really high-speed driving. But you can't deny that, So it's not that you would feel super much annoyed, but it's definitely significant that you have, this difference from 100 to 120. It's a big difference in the noise level, definitely. Other than that, the car stays relatively calm also here on the motorway. So when we, for example, do some slalom here now, see the car does not tilt too much. Still, you feel that the suspension is rather set on comfort, but not too unsporty. And definitely, again, this big change that they decreased this roughness of the suspension, which was there before. So again, this one, to me, one of the best features as for the enhancement of this model here now. And also the long-term comfort here on those seats is really good, and with a little bit more higher seating position if you compare it to a normal passenger car, that's also something then good for those motorway journeys. But indeed, if there are two things I could criticize with this car, besides all those really great facelift changes, is one, the infotainment system besides the CarPlay Android Auto, and definitely when you're at the higher speeds, more than 120 kilometers an hour, then I would have expected a little bit less wind noise there as for that. Other than that, we have found, very, very good and positive thoughts about this car in the driving part today here. And now we come to our conclusion of today with the new Toyota CHR. So indeed, when we talk about facelifts, sometimes there are minor changes, sometimes there are so big changes that they sometimes think, oh, it's an all-new car. I think here it's quite significant. It's not an all-new car, no, but they really have changed a lot. And starting with the exterior, we've seen that it's a little bit more refined, a little bit more bold in the character. I think that fits very well, and of course here, especially in this Thomas blue color. I would really like to see how it looks like with this new grey contrasting roof, this metal grey. That could look even cooler, especially in this Thomas blue color. Nebula blue was the real name for today. On the interior, even more refined materials, so it really has a premium touch meanwhile. So yeah, it's not the cheapest model as well, and they also topped up the price. Yet again, there's more extra equipment, so I think that's quite okay. But you really get more for your money now, I think. Yeah, the infotainment system software, that's still something. I mean, let's be honest, it's rubbish, the software they have on there. But since we now finally also in Europe have the Apple CarPlay and the Android Auto, this is what you're going to be using most of the time. And then the rest of the infotainment system also doesn't matter that much software-wise. You still can get something in this car, yes, but of course the trunk is the big limitation. So we two, Jonas and I today, yeah, we had some struggles to get all our luggage with us. So that's definitely the limit of this vehicle. Then again, it has a compact size, so you get along with it in the city very well. And you can go for this turbo, yes, but then again, the hybrid is what also makes this car standing out. Also, if you think about the competition, you have those electric moments. The new hybrid, the bigger one, is also a little bit more elaborate to drive. Yet again, the 1.8 gets a lithium-ion battery. I would really like to test that one also at a later stage, because it's supposed to be a little bit more spontaneous from the get-go. So really looking forward to do that. The biggest argument to go for the facelift version is, to me, the updated steering, which feels more natural, better to drive. Then of course NVH, the better noise insulation, engine also against wind noise, and of course this upgrade suspension, which accounts for all models. But yet again, the 2-liter hybrid gets hardware-wise the best new suspension. So all suspensions are better than before, but this one here especially good. That might be, to me, the main reason to go for this 2-liter hybrid then. But overall, I think really good upgrades they found here with this vehicle. So I think one of the best facelift changes we've seen recently. And of course then quite low in a fuel consumption if you think about this 5.5 liter, which is again, everything always way above 40 mpg, no matter if US or UK mpg. That's definitely quite cool. The all-new Nissan Juke. This new generation, a full tour on exterior, interior, and today the driving experience here on Autogefühl with Thomas and Jonas behind the camera. And here you will always enjoy it in full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! The new Nissan Juke is still built in Sunderland in the UK, but it sits on an all-new platform that promises more stiffness in riding, for example. We'll see how it plays out later for the driving part. In the front you can see, well, it's maybe not that dramatic as before. This car has always, actually been love or hate, something like that. But most people loved it, therefore it has been sold over 1 million times. And here the new front, it still keeps this round shape, also with the round light element right there. But headlamps now come LED as standard, and this very slim daytime running light right there. This one is the N design line, a sporty trim. There you can also see the contrasts in the lower part, here also with this gray element and the black one, so a little bit more dramatic. This will be carried out all over the car. You can also go with the base version, this one and here, this, the even more stylish one. The length of this new generation, 4 meters 21, 13 foot 8 or 166 inches. That's 8 centimeters or 3 inches more than before. And the wheel size start with 16-inch steel, then 17-inch aluminum, and those ones directly in the N design pack, 19-inch, the biggest ones available. We'll see out how that plays out for the riding comfort. Also with black accentuations, look pretty cool. Then the crossover cladding right there, and also this N design pack with the glossy black elements here in the lower area. Other than that, also typical Juke style, then with contrasting roofs available. Soon I will also show you some other colors. You can tell me which one is your favorite for today. Here, of course, it works very well with the white and black contrast to be even more dramatic. The doors here in the rear, they open right there. That's interesting. Soon more to that. Also in the interior part. What's a nice door closing sound here. Yeah, it's always important to leave all windows up, then you have a better sound, of course. And then here, pretty strong shoulders for such a rather small crossover car. And then really standing out to those tail lamps here. We'll soon take another detailed look at that. Definitely a little bit more modern than before and a little bit more grown up. Not as joyful as before maybe, but therefore maybe even more likable for an even bigger mass market. Or what's your take on this new design? There we see it. You know, this wing-alike style or this table style here in the back. It seems to be a design scheme at the moment with Japanese cars. However, you know, this one here also built in Europe, but let's say, you know, with Japanese headquarters manufacturers, that they really put this design where they make this, you know, falling window in the rear and then create this huge area right there. It looks more dramatic, definitely, and also those tail lamps stand out really very strongly. Here also with the N design badge then, and again with the glossy black elements in the lower part. So that's it for the all-new Juke as for the overall design. This is a standard Nissan car key, nothing special. Yeah, maybe something more joyful would have been cool for the new Juke, but yeah, that's it, and at least it's light. You can also use the keyless entry here with pressing the button right there. Open and close, and then door closing sound in the front. Very solid, and that speaks for this new build quality they have here with the new Juke. Yes, the inside of the doors and top part, that is hardpack, but what's cool, you have an ambient light integration right there in this gap, and then this special N design line also in the interior has a nice soft leatherette cover. It feels like in the Mercedes CLA or in the Mercedes A-Class, maybe the same supplier, so no one would guess that it's not animal sourced. It's really high grade leatherette, really cool, animal friendly, more sustainable, less CO2 output, but still feels really great. Those inside buttons, they don't feel that good, but it's cool that we now look at details with the Nissan Juke as for build quality, because in, you know, a lot of different steps it has been massively upgraded. Inside of the doors here also bigger bottles do fit, and then you can see this one, this special black and white design line fits so well to the exterior. You don't have to go for it. I'll soon also show you a more subtle version. Here, white leatherette at the dashboard. Interesting, also soft touch leatherette black and black on top here. Then also soft touch plastics here on top of the dashboard behind it. This new steering wheel, which looks a little bit sportier than before. This special button to activate the assistance system. As for the extensive ACC with the lane assist, we'll test it out in the driving part. Then soon more deals to the dash and also infotainment system. More to the seats first. The base seat is black fabric that can also be recommended and already has the form of an integrated head restraint. And then in the N design package here, comes the same form with the integrated head restraint, but then with this hole here to add some more emotional racing style feature inspired. This one also with an optional Bose sound system where the speakers are in the head restraints. There you save some speakers at other points. You have a surround sound because it's closer to your ears and in this area. Interesting idea. And here then fabric on the inside and leatherette on the outside. Again, also animal friendly. That's a cool combination. This one here also available with a more black saddle look. I'll soon show that to you if you more prefer that, but with the same material mix. And then there's also Alcantara available, but then you will also already have some animal parts. Then getting inside, you have a new ergonomic seating position. Those sport seats here or sporty seats are also good for taller people actually, and way more ergonomic seating comfort in the previous generations. That's one of the main things I like about this new generation. So before I wasn't very comfortable feeling in the Juke, but here that's actually quite fine. Seat in the lowest position. Here that leaves a lot of headroom still with the one of these 86 or 601. For a little bit better seating comfort, I usually like pump it up your 1 or 2 or 3 times and then sit a little bit more upright as for that. Steering wheel can be adjusted 2 ways like this, and also they found a good process for that. You can really find a nice seating position, so everything really feels more refined than before and more ergonomic, more comfortable. That's probably the best thing about this new interior. The interior is mainly about this new build quality. Here again, this high-class leatherette dashboard, really cool, feels so soft and nice. And for example, also here, this round vent style, it looks good, and they even have a nice clicking sound when you open and close. So pretty amazing. And also this manual climate unit that you can still access very well. Jonas said it feels a little bit like a 90s stereo or something, like a hi-fi equipment. I really like the haptic feedback. Yeah, maybe because I'm also like a kid of the 90s. So with every step you have like click, click, click. Not like really much acoustic, but just how you feel it. So massively step up the game as for the this input quality, how you interact with the car, and I really, really like that. Then the steering wheel also has a good size overall. Again, right side to set the adaptive cruise control, which is an option. AEB, the autonomous emergency brake, would be a standard already. Left side for the volume, and you can also control this digital screen. Soon we'll also take a detailed look to the digital screen together with the analog dials right and left. And this central dash then here on the right again. This is the new 8-inch touchscreen right there, and the software still looks somehow dated already. Yeah, that's always a problem. We see that a lot with the Japanese manufacturers, that they do a lot of things really great, but then the software of the infotainment system is always dated. I have no idea why. There is a rear camera available that has, also front view, by the way. This one at the moment is the front view camera. It's good to have it, definitely. This drone view from above, but the resolution is not the best one in this case. Here you can even check out the alloys or the rims, wheels, right and left. Also a cool option. And here direct a hotkey to the audio function. In this case, we directly go to the CarPlay menu, or you can also go here in the main menu to the Apple CarPlay menu. That's how it looks like. Android Auto also available, and that's probably the most thing you will use then. And the Bose sound system is nice for a size, for this car size, but it's really bass heavy, so I actually tuned down the bass a little bit because it's really hammering in the bass. It's quite decent. It's not the best sound system I've ever heard, but it's also not bad, so actually quite nice, and definitely a good upgrade if you compare it to the standard sound system you have in this car. And you see here the integration is also, they use all of the screen. And in the map, I had some problems with the map. Probably also, if you have enough data connection, then just use your map you have there, with the CarPlay or with the phone connection, because here you can zoom in and out with this knob. You can also use it right here with zooming in and out, but the visualization was not that helpful. And also when I'm on the Autobahn, there was like this split view where I could not see that well where you have to go to. So not so satisfied with the GPS software. To me, the most important thing is bigger screen and the proper smartphone integration. That's good. And what's also cool, when you drive at night, you can always just, dim it down. That's a helpful feature that is then again missing with some of the other manufacturers. What else is missing right there? There's some more deals I'd like to show you. By the way, don't wonder about my sleeves. I have a short shirt underneath because I was expecting it to get warmer, so not long sleeves. So here, a really big glove box with huge space, and that's sometimes really important and very useful. Although it's even dampened. Nice. Then lower part of the other area, there's this USB-A supply to connect your smartphone, no inductive charging pad, and another 12-volt power supply if you want to use that one. Then here the 6-speed manual gearbox, also with ambient lighting around here, if you like. I think Jonas also has, there it is. Doesn't need some extra shots. Here's the ambient lighting. We can see it right there. Then the drive mode selector, which will more play a role when you have the automatic gearbox. Non-adaptive cup holder, so you need the right bottle size for that. And then, this whole middle console can be shaken a little bit. It's better build quality here as well. Then also with a nice leather red cover right there. This is also still somewhat okay because it's squeezed in here between those seats. And when you flip that one here up, there's another cubby hole inside. So, and then here, left and right analog, speedometer and the RPMs, and in the middle then you have some digital information, for example the digital speed. That's actually quite clear and nice to read, or you can check your music or the settings for the assistance systems and so on, and it's also clear to read, so it's a mix of classic and more modern. Then I showed you before, really a clever integration right there, and the same styling here, and then the N design pack, hard pack here, but then the soft leather red right there. And if you have the Bose sound system, this one here is just a blind speaker, although it looks like that, but it's not active. Yeah, very funny. In the bass sound system will be active then, but you don't need it in the Bose sound system anymore. And here again, the nice styling also for the rear compartment with this black and white mix. And since the wheelbase has been increased, you also have some more leg room. And it's also good that you put the seat a little bit higher than your feet fit well under it. And I mean, it's not a super long car, but still the package is quite okay, and you can fit 4 tall adults here, especially as for the headroom. I can even put a hand over my head. That still works, so not plenty of space, but it's decently comfortable. You have also a rather upright seating position here. There's not a big structural middle tunnel, so theoretically you can also sit in the middle part. It's also quite soft. That does work, although it's, somewhat limited. Isofix here at the outside of the seats each for the child seats, and it's also quite well accessible. Then you flip the seats from here, although this flipping mechanism is not that good. That's sometimes a problem when the seatbelt is not loose. So now again, and you see it here on the top, I don't like those mechanisms where you just have to press that one in. It's easier when it's a flipping mechanism. The only thing left to show right here is that there's another USB supply, a normal USB-A. Right here, the cover here is maybe not that good, but that's just a minor detail. Overall, I think also in the rear compartment, also in the rear, in the rear seating comfort, definitely a gain if you compare it to the predecessor. With 420 liters of capacity, the boot is also more voluminous than before, and you have some variation right there. There's this loading floor, you can put it out completely if you like, or you can just store it in the very low area, and that's good because then you have more height available, so it will very well fit here also with the backpack. And the maximum height right here was 53 with that, and if you then you have 1 or 2 centimeters more if you put that lower floor out completely, then at about 55 centimeters. And the normal length here is about 80 centimeters, and the width about a meter. And then you also have some more options for this floor, so you can put it on the half stage. So if you want to put something below that, for example, and just want to access that, or you can put it in the highest position, then you have less height, but you have hardly any loading still then, so that can also be cozy for everyday stuff, some groceries and so on. But you always then have the possibility if you need something more. And that was really helpful for our camera equipment and so on. then you can store definitely more. So, and you can also just grab over here, and then again, yeah, this mechanism to put those buttons in, this is really not that easy. And then again, the seatbelt is maybe blocking the whole process, so flipping those seats is not that easy, to be honest. Then I have to go here and check in, and yeah, seatbelt is absolutely tight now again. Yeah, that's really a problem. Yeah, now finally I could make this seatbelt loose, and then we can flip the whole thing and we see what length we can get right there. And you know, either you have this step then here, and to the seat as I would be driving, that would be almost 1.50 meters. And here again, this flexible boot floor plays a role, because if we want to go like this, then it makes even more sense to have an even loading surface. And what about the engines? Well, there is only one, so easy for us, easy for you, and they obviously didn't put an engine cover here yet, so I mean, also good for you, then we can see a little bit more of this engine. And this is a 1-liter 3-cylinder turbo petrol engine, 117 horsepower, either a 6-speed manual gearbox or a 7-speed dual clutch transmission. Yes, you heard it correctly, because there were some comments in our initial static review like, oh, again, the CVT, there was a horrible automatic gearbox. No, this one here, if you go automatic, then a dual clutch transmission, a really new one. That should improve also the automatic driving comfort. The acceleration figures, they differ just a little bit. So it's either 10.4 seconds to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour with the manual gearbox, or 11.1 seconds for the DCT. So in this case, dual clutch transmission is slower. Usually it's the other way around, but here they put a different gear ratio for the DCT to make it a little bit more comfortable in the ride. So there, you know, that explains this 0.7 seconds acceleration difference. And we always like to show you some color combinations. This one, for example, black with a red roof. So please tell me which one is your favorite color for today. Of course, more combinations will be possible. For example, here, the wine red in the lower part, then with a gray contrast roof. Would that rather be something for you? Also, by the way, all the cars here with 19-inch wheels. And another variation here with the gray in the lower part and then the red as the top contrast roof. And if you like those recommended seats with fabric inside and leatherette outside in a more subtle tone, just dark neutral look, then this one is also possible. You can see here, just in black, some white contrast stitches, and also the rest of the interior here, just rather subtle, rather black. So it's also possible if you want to go for that. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge with the all-new Nissan Juke. And we're here at the Montserrat Mountains, winding roads close to Barcelona. And we want to test the new agility of the Juke. This new platform was promising us more agile driving fun. And I have to say, indeed, the car does feel a little bit more agile than the previous generation. A little bit stiffer as for the chassis, you feel that. Here with those 19-inch wheels, we also have a connection to the road. Yeah, you will lose some comfort definitely in everyday driving life, but still, you know, this normal standard suspension, just one that is available for the Juke, and so far it feels like a good compromise. So it doesn't feel too soft, yet it doesn't feel uncomfortable. So suspension-wise, this is probably one of the best upgrades. However, if there are some uneven parts on the road, then you do feel you have normal suspension, non-adaptive, and you have those 19-inch wheels, which are somewhat a little bit, you know, not that forgiving then in this case. But still, as you know, as long as the road is good, it's all nice. And you see maybe also from the steering input, that feels quite natural, quite good. I don't have to steer that much, so the steering is quite progressive. I like that. I can keep my hands on the steering wheel, both hands on the steering wheel all the time, so pretty nice. Really like the steering setup they found here. The manual gearbox, which will be driven by most customers. That's also the reason I chose that one here as a primary vehicle today, because I always want to see what are the most guys going for. and shifting ways could be maybe a little bit shorter, but it's overall okay. Has a quite crisp feedback, so rather a sporty feedback than a smooth one. Here now for those winding corners, that's exactly what we would like. That feels very sport indeed. So the steering is actually quite light, yet it feels good because it's progressive, but you cannot expect the best feedback or something. Let's see when we put it in sport mode here if that's any different. In sport mode the throttle input is increased a little bit. That's also counting for the manual gearbox, but of course the biggest difference will be when you have the automatic gearbox, because the shifting is altered then as well. Having a lot of fun here in the Juke, and it doesn't feel super SUV-ish. It rather feels like a normal hatch when driving it, just a little bit higher, a little bit crossover, and definitely having, wow, what a stunning landscape here in the morning at Montserrat, where the fog is being caught by those hills. That's really beautiful, pretty amazing. And I mean, standard mode, steering, sport mode. Is that any different? Yeah, that's very light. Sport. Yeah, there's some more resistance in the feet, in the steering wheel, so that maybe you do prefer that, to have some more resistance in the steering. And I think in this case that's actually a quite good decision. And also, since the sport mode doesn't change too much from the manual gearbox, you can also always leave it in the sports mode if you like, for example. So to me, one of the most important things, definitely this suspension upgrade. That is definitely better than before, so more comfortable, although we have those 19-inch wheels. You maybe notice that on camera there's also not too much body roll, so that's also quite good. Here's some slalom. Again, pretty decent. So indeed, this new generation does offer you more sporty driving fun. Really like that. So maybe a little bit like in the base version, like one of the sporty versions before. And the brakes are really crisp and sharp, I like that. So I like when cars have a direct brake pedal feedback, because usually in some situations you not exactly sure if you brake enough. So it's better when they react directly, and then it's also safer for you. So very nice to steer this car around here. Definitely a nice character driving wise. Yeah, this 1-liter 3-cylinder engine, it doesn't have much power. However, in situations where don't city something, it's totally fine. And you can also use this turbo, just shift a gear down, then it has a peculiar sound, definitely, those 3-cylinder engines. So you can always have some acceleration because you have this turbo, but don't expect too much here. There's not much coming from but it's a small car, it's not too heavy. I think it's okay to have this one engine option. They will not offer a Nismo version, that's my information so far, because of the also like taxation and the fleet consumption stuff, and the new emission laws and so on. So I guess it will be this one, maybe even on the long run. But again, for a size of that car here, I think it's still okay. Just shift down if you need some more power. And especially in those low speed areas, it's totally fine. Yeah, maybe if we get to the motorway later on, this will be something different. But we will also soon test how it behaves on the motorway. So far, really nice. Maybe a little bit more natural steering feedback I would have wished, but that's maybe just on a high scale. Overall, I think they managed it that this car is more fun to drive, even in a base version, and especially more comfortable seating wise and suspension wise. And now to some motorway driving, because that's of course also very important. At the moment we are at about 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour, and noise insulation is a little bit better than before. It's, let's say, decent, but it's not that we would say it's like super silent. That's also not the main feature of this vehicle, but still is quite okay. And it delivers us, definitely a decent calm ride overall. Not sure what that was, but what's very interesting, you can either set the normal cruise control, or here on the right side of the steering wheel, then, as I told you earlier, you can set this, extensive autopilot. Well, it's not a real autopilot, but as far as it goes here. And that means that the steering is being overtaken while you should keep your hands at the steering wheel. And also the adaptive cruise control rules everything. However, here with the manual gearbox, it's of course not reducing the speed until 0 because it would stall the engine. So it's even working better than with the auto gearbox. Now we are at about 120 kilometers an hour. And still noise insulation is okay. As I said, it's not that I would say it's best in segment or something, but it's still quite decent. And gives me, a good controlled feeling of the car still. So when I'm in this, let's say elaborate assistance systems mode, we also have some curved motorways here, always close to Barcelona. And you can see here, you should not take your hands off the steering wheel. I'm just, showing you for demonstration purposes here now that now is also the warning. I should keep my hands on, but I just want to show you that it does keep the lane. It feels a little bit artificial when it's keeping the lane, so experience that somehow better already. But it's also not too bad. I've also experienced it worse, so it's like something in between. But overall, good to have the system maybe to be able to relax a little bit more. And of course, the adaptive cruise control is pretty good, and also to keep the fuel consumption quite low. And when we are rather using cruise control and so on, we're getting something close, at the moment even a little bit less than 6 liters on 100 kilometers. So we're good then in the, let's say, 40 mpg US range, or higher 40 mpg UK mpg ranges. So you can score that. Of course, if you move it a little bit more agile, as we did earlier, then the fuel consumption also goes up. But you can score something like that. That is definitely possible. As for the minimum consumption, again, cruise control on the motorway is usually one of the least consumptions you'll have. And when you have some more city driving in there, then it's rather realistic, something a little bit more than 7 liters or 1 kilometers. That would be then rather in the low 40 mpg or maybe 30 something mpg ranges. Of course, the US mpg is always a little bit lower than the UK mpg figures because of the different mpg unit. And the round visibility to the front is very good. To the sides, still somewhat okay. Still off the design. We do have blind spot monitor, however, that's also very important for this car then. So we also save as for that respect. Some wind noises here at the 8-pillar, so again, this could be a little bit better. And what we also realized, now at 120 kilometers an hour, the wind noise is predominant. But when we were driving about like 80 or something, the wind noise were not that high. And then actually there was like some kind of silent rattling sound coming from like this engine bay area. Must be some, there are so many moving parts in the engine, but something is not that well insulated that you do hear that when you're driving not too fast and you're not listening to music. So I think that should be improved. I think it could drive me nuts over time. We will also try to find out, maybe drive a different vehicle later, if that was just this one vehicle or if it's generally present. So we can also change the lane here. Let's see if the blind spot monitors. It seems to be shut off because I see the triangle. Yeah, that sometimes in those test vehicles it's deactivated, and then you have to search for that. That can also drive me nuts just a little bit. See here, camera mode settings, Nissan Connect service. Yeah, and definitely distracting to use the touchscreen while driving. That's for sure. Yeah, that's here with the safety shield. There, blind spot off. It says here. Yeah, but that also, you know, about intuitive use of an infotainment system. Ah, there it is. Blind spot warning on. Blind spot intervention on. Yeah, I like that. Do I like that? We'll find out. So I found it here now in the cockpit. So there it is. And then let's see. When I'm using the turning indicator, then it's flashing. And now let's see if this blind spot intervention works as well. Let's change here. That's possible. So, but when I use the turning indicator, yeah. So maybe that the intervention is just like, you know, this beeping. Let's see. Let's turn it off. No, it's the same. So I didn't feel any blind spot intervention, you know. Maybe I have to turn the steering in advance a little bit. Let's see. No, I don't feel any blind spot intervention here so far. Yeah, we can just test it out here live for you, definitely. So what about some acceleration here on the motorway? Let me put those digital instruments to speed again, and you can check the speedometer by that. The manual gearbox here, by the way, then also on the motorway. It's nice and easy to shift. The gear stick is quite long actually. We're going downhill, and as soon as we're going straight again, I want to do some more acceleration. So here the maximum speed is 120 kilometers an hour. Let's see, where's the next spot open? There's a new Seat Tarraco coming right there. It's good to be on the Thomas's driving lounge to watch some other cars. There's an Alfa Stelvio. Oh, then I think the older Passat variant. So let's go to the left lane. Third gear, 90 kilometers an hour. Third gear. Plop. That's 120. So that was 90 to 120, and yeah, I mean, that's the thing with the 1 liter 3-cylinder engine. You don't have much power when you're already at speed. So you cannot expect some wild overtaking maneuvers, and only this engine is available here. At lower speeds, it's totally fine. In the city and so on, that's also where it's predominantly laid out to. So 10.4 seconds for this one for the manual, and that is 0.7 seconds faster than with the DCT. Why is that? Because of the gear ratio. They made the DCT appear very smooth in shifting, and so it's actually slower, whereas with most other cars, the DCT is faster than the manual gearbox. So cruise control set here again, the adaptive one. Now the speed is set to 100. There's also traffic sign recognition right there, but it's not changing the speed of the ACC. Not that elaborate, but at least it shows me in traffic signs, and then I can adjust it here at the steering wheel once again. So it's not a primary motorway vehicle or something, but it's still quite decent. The seating comfort is still good here in those sporty seats, also for taller people. That is a massive step forward if you compare it to the previous generation, because that I didn't feel that comfortable in the previous generation, to be honest. And again, sound installation, okay, better than in the previous generation, but not at the highest level. The assistance systems definitely more elaborate than before. Again, feels a little bit artificial when it steers here with me, but then again, you see here it works actually quite flawless. Here again, but don't do this at home or in your car. Always keep your hands at the steering wheel. So yeah, so far you definitely also feel in this respect here that they refine more and more stuff about this vehicle, and overall I really like it. The driving modes, by the way, here they won't play such an effect, eco, standard or sport. It's more about the automatic gearbox, so there's not a big effect than here on the manual gearbox, because you control it all yourself anyway. You know, it's more about the shifting characteristics. So once more, right here. Now uphill, we can also shift back. There's always this typical, 3-cylinder sound right here. That's always quite peculiar. Definitely this car feels more at home at slower speeds and in the city, and maybe also doing some agile driving. But still, also the motorway presentation is a step forward if we compare it to the predecessor. And now to our conclusion for today with the all-new Nissan Juke. The exterior, a little bit less polarizing than before, but I think that's actually a good step, because also to me, I like this one here definitely more. And the feedback we got so far with the static review was actually very, very positive. There will be still some splitting in love or hate, but I mean, it's a worldwide success definitely with this car. Just look at the sales figures. This, is really selling literally in millions. Interesting. Well, and then on the interior, since the car is a little bit bigger than before, you have especially more rear legroom. That's good and important for everyday using this car. Massive step up in the interior build quality. So a lot of single elements. They are really, really very well done now. And the best we've seen from all Nissan cars so far. So they really made a big step ahead. Also with the infotainment system, that you have a good Apple CarPlay and Android Auto connection. Interesting also with the special Bose speakers there, if you go for that option. The rest of the infotainment system, is not that much up to date as for software, but probably you will rely on your smartphone connection anyway. Also in driving, more agile driving feeling for this car, feels more refined than before. Even if you go for the automatic gearbox, you now have a proper DCT automatic transmission, so this will also help. In general, the driving feeling is a little bit crisper even in those standard versions, and especially suspension comfort has been increased together with the better seating comfort. That's probably the most important thing to me about this vehicle. Fuel consumption here with this one engine that is available, about 7 liters on 1 kilometer is a realistic one. That is 30 something mpg in US or close to 40 mpg UK. I think you can also live with that. That's normal for a car of that size with a turbo petrol engine. So it won't consume you less just because it's a small engine. Downsizing doesn't necessarily mean less fuel consumption. Is the downsizing here okay? I mean, they try to keep the price of the car low. That's also one reason why it's so successful, because you have a car that has some joy, but still is not that expensive. And especially joy also in the interior. Here, especially with this very car, with the fabric leather red mix in black and white, and also black white exterior. This is so well fitting together, and also sustainable and animal friendly materials on the interior. We've seen here a couple of different combinations today. So I think that's really something pretty cool, and I like when something can be special in cars that are still somewhat affordable, and not only in those high-class premium cars. And then back to the engine where I was coming to. This one here is actually enough for this kind of car. If you want to accelerate on the motorway, that can lack some power. So a bigger, powerful engine might be a nice option to go for. But you can also understand that they try to make it lean from the whole options and engine lineup. That's then maybe also again good for the customer, that you can keep this base price. I think we're gonna have to live with that. For most purposes it will be okay, just cannot expect a superb acceleration. Thank you so much for tuning in today to Autogefühl. Maybe also check out our static review, that was also interesting. We also showed different trims there and so on, different surrounding and so on. And also competitors of this car. A Toyota CHR, for example, would be one you could check out. And they also resemble a little bit in the design. Welcome to this in-depth review of the all-new Peugeot 2008. This compact SUV today as the combustion engine and also as the E2008, the all-electric version. This will be very interesting. Here on Autogefühl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars, with Thomas in front and Jonas behind the camera, and everything you need to know about this car, no matter in which engine version, exterior, interior, and the driving experience. Now in full HD, full screen, and full length. Let's go! Please subscribe to us if you haven't done so far, and thank you so much to all long-term subscribers. Here in the front, the all-new Peugeot 2008 has a stronger stance on the road, stronger front grille, also more upright. This one here is the GT version. In the combustion engine, it's connected to the 155 horsepower top petrol engine, and it has this, vertical dots, let's call them that way. Here also, with some shiny elements, so looks really sporty and nice, also sportier lower end than in the GT version. If you just want the styling, you can also get for a GT line than with one of the smaller engines. Then the headlamps, you see the daytime running light has, those line claws, and it always starts with the so-called Eco LED, so with a low trim LED headlamp, and then option you can get the full LED headlamps, and they come with the higher trims or optional. The electric version, the E2008, you can get in different trims, also in the GT trim. We can see it right here. So it looks kind of similar, also in the lower part, but the E2008 always has a different front grille. First of all, we see those horizontal dots, we call them, and they're also in the same vehicle color. Vertigo blue it is, and, well, that's what we call Thomas blue on Autogefühl, a very, very strong blue. Quite nice, isn't it? So this is, one differentiation for the E version. And one more design element here in the front, which is different in the E2008. Here, the Peugeot line, it's not only in chrome, but it has this contrast color. And this one here, depending on the light angle, it looks greenish or a little bit bluish, more greenish than bluish. But again, this is another small differentiation. The length is at 4 meters 30, 14 foot 1 or 169 inches, and that's actually 15 centimeters or 6 inches more than the predecessor, so a significant gain in length. This will also have an effect on the interior, of course. Here again, the ICE version, but in the side profile, the combustion engine version and the electric version is not really different. We just have different colors here today. This one is called Orange Fusion, and it's also a very strong color. So both colors we have here today on display are actually, pretty much screaming out. This one here, the GT pack, also has the GT badge here. Then, usually you would start with 16-inch rims. Those ones are the 18-inch wheels. They come with the GT package and also different stylings available. Then you also get with the GT pack this black roof as a contrast then to the lower color to give it, a little bit more styling. So what do you think here? Also quite significant is that design line, the dropping line, the designers called it, it's being split right here next towards the C pillar, and this also creates this extra area right here. Pretty interesting. So what's your take so far? Beautiful evening sun here in the French Luberon. And also, again, this beautiful vertigo blue color here with the E2008. You can see the side profile, it's pretty much the same, so that more depends on the color, the difference here now. Well, we do have other wheels, but that's also not connected to the E version. Here, I think a little bit more beautiful in this two-color scheme than with the all-black scheme we have seen with the orange car. And now to the rear with a very modern design, pretty cool with those LED signatures and the Peugeot lettering. So that's indeed quite daring, but I think it looks really, really good. Or what do you think? Here again, the GT trim with a sportier lower exterior contrast, and then fake exhaust alert. So those outer tips are just for beauty. The real exhaust are on the inside. Here again, the GT trim with the 155 horsepower petrol. How will that look different with the E2008? Yeah, I'm glad they did not go for fake exhaust here on the E2008, so well done. Yeah, I mean, again, in this blue color, again, the same design. So that you have the GT badge right there, because this is also possible to have as a GT version. And then on the other side here, the E2008, that's a second thing where you can see that's actually the electric version. Well, and then overall, I think design, yeah, it's quite daring. It is indeed different than the competitors. At the same time, they have a lot of, element and sporty design features, especially here in the GT versions. I can just say, I like it pretty much. Designers from the exterior, let's discuss it in the comments. And of course, engines and interior are to come. And later on, the driving part. As for engines, it always comes with, when you pick the petrol, with a 1.2-liter 3-cylinder petrol engine. Here in the GT spec with 155 horsepower, made with an 8-speed automatic gearbox, 8.2 seconds acceleration figure, or 130 horsepower, optional 8-speed automatic, or then with 100 horsepower, just with manual. Then there's also a 1.5 liter 4-cylinder diesel, either 130 horsepower, mated with 8-speed automatic, or with 100 horsepower, then as manual. So that's it for the combustion engines. Always front-wheel drive only. And by the way, this red charger you can see here, this is just for the static car. It does not belong to the engine, that we have power on the interior of the car. Front-wheel drive only, also for the electric version, 136 horsepower and 9 seconds is the acceleration figure to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. So a little bit slower than the top petrol engine. And talking about the battery, here by the way, we still have this charger that we don't deplete the battery with the interior functions to, again, just show purposes. But this one here will always be the same case here, the front electric motor. And the battery size is 50 kilowatt hours. So that's actually quite decent. And that gives an official range of 320 kilometers or 200 miles. And charging is up to 11 kilowatt AC and up to 100 kilowatt DC. And now to the interior. First of all, door closing sound. It's quite good, I think. Keyless entry, when you put your hand on the outside, would close it, open on the inside. Then inside of the doors, here is also slightly soft touch. Then this curved design element here in the carbon fiber style in the GT trim. Leather red elements here, also soft touch. Here are the buttons. This is quite easy, let's say simple. Then some door pockets where you can also put some bigger bottles right there. And then also in the GT trim you have special steering wheel, the GT badge, this Peugeot i-cockpit, small steering wheel, very small one. Then with optional digital instruments, zoom more details to that. That's very interesting. Carbon fiber inserts right there. This one here is also soft touch. Then those special seats. Normally, a normal seat form will start with fabric seat, and then in the Allure there's fabric on the inside, leatherette on the outside, like here. But this one then here is a special sport seat in the GT trim, so with bigger shoulder support, for example. And then it's a very cool mix. There's fabric here, there's an Alcantara right there, and leatherette on the outside, so all sustainable and animal friendly and looks really good. Soon looking forward to test that. This one here, the ICE car, but that doesn't have any special effect on the interior. Both electric and the combustion engine interiors look almost the same. It's then trim choice, for example, or color choice. Just want to start with this one here with the dark Alcantara fabric seats. Looks very cool, and it also looks like that on the rear, by the way. Take a look at that. Oh, Jonas also got this laptop right there as a contrast. So you can see here also the dark Alcantara fabric on the rear here. And interesting is that this grey fabric in Alcantara, this one is indeed reserved here for the EV version, for the E2008. So it's the same styling as for the materials and stuff, but the color is different. This one only for the EV, whereas the petrol engine GT gets then this black design we've shown you. I'm 1m86 or 6'1", and when I have it in the lowest position, there is still some headroom left. There is a panoramic roof here, an optional one, and you can even open it. So it's not just one where you just have the slider, so you can open it, and it's actually not too small. Also, in the width right there, and of course you can also. But it seems you have to hold it, so it's not like this easy function. And then you can also have this cover. And this cover then here is manual, but we'll leave it open for you. Well, and I would put the seat a little bit higher that we don't, fall too far back actually, and make it a little bit steeper right there. And yeah, it's actually a good seating position also for tall people. As for the seat, especially here, those GT Sport seats, they're a little bit bigger, a little bit wider also, and they really keep you tight. That's cool. And then this steering wheel, you can adjust it, but how it feels like from the function, that is a little bit cheaply done, I think. So that's something to criticize in the interior build quality. The seat is marvelous, definitely also build quality wise, but here the steering wheel function, I'm not sure. And maybe you can always see it from here. Especially if you're a tall driver, you always have sometimes little, problems here with the steering wheel because it blocks then the view to there. Then again, this one is positioned quite high that you don't need a separate head-up display. That's the philosophy. But for tall people, and also with my legs, I have to put the steering wheel all the way up because even here it gets closed with the legs. So not a fan of that. And also what they haven't paid attention to, look at here. The floor mat, I think that's, safety relevant. There is no fixation in the front there for this floor mat, so not sure what this is about. So you see, there's light and shadow here in this interior. I mean, it looks amazing and very modern, very futuristic, and again, seats great. It's also super much fun to control it with the steering wheel here, but it has some limitations here. Yeah, so but I somehow like it when we can talk about many things in a car. What's your take on that? So, optional, you can get this 10-inch digital screen, and it has this 3D effect. You can pick it a little bit up on the camera. So it's like 2 layers, so it appears even more three-dimensional, of course, with your own eyes. So this 0 from the kilometers an hour, and also this battery pack visualization from the car. This one it would be the front layer, and the other layer is behind it. So very interesting technology. And you're, of course, a little bit flexible of what you want to display here and how you want to change the layout. So that's that's the advantage of those digital instruments. So pretty fancy thing, actually. Is it too distracting? I'm not sure. I mean, you can also have some GPS visualization here, for example. So that's actually the biggest advantage, that you don't have to look over to the central infotainment screen. So it's a nice option to go for, definitely. Now the interior overview. Again, the top part here is soft touch. And then there's a hole right here, so you can grab around that. Well, this is a, unique design, so to say. In the view to the digital instruments, you can see how the steering wheel sometimes blocks it, especially when I have to put the steering wheel all the way up. And on the steering wheel, by the way, on the left side, you control those digital instruments here with rolling this one here, and also for volume up and down. And on the right side, then this more has an effect on what's happening on the right side. For the music, for example, and picking up the phone. Well, then you have here this carbon fiber insert once again. It's not really carbon fiber, it's rather, also soft touch. That's interesting. So you can really, squeeze that. Pretty interesting. Then this 10-inch screen, standard would be a 7-inch screen, so a smaller one. Optional, or included in the higher trims, a 10-inch screen. Then also with the GPS, you can have that one. But also the small screen would feature Apple CarPlay or Android Auto already. And in the lower part right here, you can activate the seat heating. It's pretty complicated to reach it, especially while driving. How can you do that? And then those hotkeys for the GPS, here, for example, to access the climate menu, because you have to do that everything in the screen. So adjusting the climate. This is rather a car where we set 22 degrees Celsius and AC on and auto and leave it like this, because controlling it while driving is then a little bit complicated. There's also a GPS hotkey, for example. Then you can access the GPS and so on. And let's say the visualization is rather basic, and the pinch and zoom is also a little bit laggy. So not such a fan of the software they have in here. And next to those hotkeys we have here, by the way, the E version also has then, especially visualizations for the electric stuff. But that's the only thing that is really changing here. Other than that, it's almost all the same. And then you have some real physical buttons left, for example, for the hazard lights, for closing the car, AC Max, for example, and then one physical button here left for the volume, but that's also a little bit loosely attached. Further down below, what else can we see? This one here opens the QI. This one, see the inductive charging pad, if you want that one. Other than that, you have USB-C on the left or USB-A on the right. There I plug it in because, strangely, when I had the USB-C adapter on the left side, it did not activate the CarPlay. here with the USB-A, it did activate the CarPlay actually. Then you could put your smartphone here, or you could also put it here. But then again, your inductive charging plus cable charging does not make sense here at the same time. Then also with the cable here, you cannot close it anymore. So yeah, not sure. But you can also leave it like this. This would also be possible in that way. Then we have the automatic shifting lever further down below in this, dolphin style, so to say. So put it behind for the D mode. Then even further, electric handbrake next to some non-adaptive cup holders. And then there's a driving mode selector as well. And last but not least, there's this armrest with a leatherette cover. And yeah, it's squeezed between the seats, so you don't really realize it would be loose. And then when you put it up, you have some more storage below. A little bit complicated because, some more splitters. But yeah, you could put that one in the top part, obviously, to have like a small cubby hole on top. So now that we have connected the Apple CarPlay, this is the integration, not all the way over the screen, but you see it right here. And we can also play, some music. This is then this standard audio system in here. This sounds actually quite good, quite standard. We can also test how it is different from with this optional focal sound system soon. And right there, just to show you how it integrated. And then, usually you go back to the screen somewhere, maybe like this, but it would be just that you use the lower buttons, and again, then you can go back to this Peugeot menu. So now we switch the cars again with the focal sound system, and indeed the sound it sounds richer, so more depth, so to say. Really cool. So I can recommend that for music lovers. You have additional speakers on top of the screen. There's this additional focal speaker and also additional speakers at the A-pillars. And what about the rear? First of all, styling-wise, you can see here, by the way, hardpack at the inside of the doors at the rear, but at this price point, I think it's also okay. Well, the E2008, not too cheap. Yeah, we can argue about that. So you can see here the fabric seats again, fabric Alcantara seats with leatherette on the outside. Again, a beautiful job. And let me get inside right here, because if you compare to the predecessor, this is of course something which has changed significantly. Now you can sit here with 4 tall adults, and it does indeed fit legroom and also headroom-wise. It's actually quite decently comfortable, so nothing to criticize here. And again, this is a big difference to the predecessor. You could not do that well in the predecessor with hardly any legroom left. Now it is actually possible. On that, we have 2 more USB supplies here in the middle, ISOFIX at the outside, and then you don't have any middle armrest, but you do flip the seats from here already. We'll soon show you that from the trunk. In the trunk, you gain now about 80 liters if you compare it to the predecessor. Quite square dimensions. Then you have this cover, which you can also hold open. Then you have some more space underneath. And then only in the combustion engine version, you have more storage underneath. So possible for replacement tire as well. So here we go. But that way you have an even loading sill. And the normal length of the trunk is about 75 centimeters, 1 meter in width, and also here 40 centimeters up to the top cover. And when you flip the seats like this, 1/3, 2/3 split, this one then is about 1 meter 50 up to the front seat. And it's nice to see that it's the same in the electric variant. So you even have the storage here underneath for your charging cable, for example, right there. Just below here, this one then is limited, and therefore the official figure is 30 liters less, but it's the same usability. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge with the 2008, the only 2008, and when we put in the reverse camera, here we go. This I want to show is very weird resolution, and the drone view up from above. This also doesn't make any sense. It's not with the side mirrors, just front and rear, and then there's no live feed from the side, so to say. It's just, let's say, a fake feed at the side. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. So rear view camera and the drone view from above camera, not really something that is really good with those cars, and I was expecting with this all-new generation that it gets a better resolution as for the cameras, but it hasn't. And voice input, by the way, when you press this button here, increase temperature.
Temperature changed.
So this would be a possibility to change the temperature a little bit easier than going over the screen right there. Via voice. It's not a natural voice input, so when you hit this button, you have certain options, but then you can use those options. So there is some voice feature, but not like an elaborate one, so to say. This one is sharing this so-called CMP platform, by the way, with also other models you already know, DR3, for example, Peugeot 208, and so on. So it also, feels a little bit like you would be driving a small car. It's not a big car overall, no. You sit, of course, a little bit higher than in a 208, so because it has this SUV crossover style, but it still has this small car feeling. First of all, because of the dimensions, then because of the platform, and also due to this steering wheel, especially, it has, it is somehow fun and unique. Definitely, it was also, in the other cars that have this Peugeot iCockpit. It's a little bit like in a computer game, no matter where you are. So that's definitely a lot of fun. Especially to steer this car around some narrow areas. This is quite cool because it's very light in the steering. Again, feels fun like in a computer game, and it just makes life a little bit more unique, definitely. So how can we deactivate those voice? Well, usually, you just either you can set it here, like in the settings, or you turn down the volume. It depends on, but there's nothing you can, easy, if I find here in a very easy way. Now we're going a little bit more agile right here. And there's actually a lot of fun. So you don't have a supernatural feeling with the steering, but then again, because it's so light and small, it's just a lot of fun. And here in the slalom, actually, this platform here also offers some more stiffer driving fun. It's actually pretty decent. And the car doesn't feel like shaky SUV-wise. It feels actually quite agile and sporty. And especially here in this GT version, together with those sport seats, they really keep you tight. Again, it doesn't feel that it would be the most suitable car for tall people. Steering setup, also with the instrument setup and so on, and the space you have overall. But I think we get along quite well, and both Jonas and me are not very small. So this car does deliver a very fun and unique experience, and it's indeed, in so many aspects, somehow different than the competitors. I can hardly see the speed here now. I would have to put the steering wheel a little bit lower for that. Never do that while driving, what I'm doing at the moment here, by the way. So now I can see the speed better, but now the steering wheel is also quite low. So that's something you have to take in mind, definitely. Suspension is actually a good compromise. So it's not super stiff, it's not very soft, it's a good compromise in between. So I'm happy with that. And again, we're driving the 1.2 liter 3-cylinder petrol engine, has a turbo, and it's 155 horsepower. And for this car, this is the top engine, and that feels also fun and light to drive. So you can also get along with a little bit less horsepower output. Yes, it will be the same petrol engine, by the way. Diesel's not sure if they really make sense for this size of the vehicle. There will be a little bit less in the fuel consumption, but still, for this weight and this size, the petrol should be fine. Or then again, the electric version, which I'm also really looking forward to drive. But so far, I think to me, the main characteristic is that this car feels fun and light, and it really rather feels like driving a small car, like a small hatch. Yet again, you have a little bit more comfort because of the more upright and higher seating position. So I would favor this one here if you compare it to a normal small vehicle, because it just gives you a little bit more comfort. Here again, we can do some slalom and good reactions from the car. Yes, there is some leaning in the corners, definitely, because It's not a sport suspension, but that's also not what you would desire in a car like this. We have some very nice winding roads here, and that's actually pretty decent. So this unique driving feeling is something, yeah, it really stands out in this segment. Noise insulation here, by the way, at about 60 kilometers an hour. So far, very good. We'll see when we get up to a little bit more speed, how that one plays out. This 3-dimensional display is very fancy, by the way, also to look at it while driving. And I can pretty well read that, especially if the steering wheel is not blocking it. Here at about 80 kilometers an hour, still good as for the noise insulation, no problem. View around, so the front's good. Yeah, B-pillar, you better have the blind spot monitor, which we also have in this car as an option. And to the rear is actually quite good again. So let's see what we have as fuel economy so far. Here, by the way, now I've set the GPS in the digital instruments. That really helps me. And so, yeah, you also do not need a head-up display then. That's also their philosophy in putting it that high. But actually for me, it would need to be even higher, just a little bit. Now we're going over the first hump, see how the suspension does that. Yeah, pretty soft actually. So obviously they thought about, it's a French manufacturer, and so they thought about little speed humps they have here in the cities, that it actually suits this driving style, definitely. And also when we're here in those very narrow French cities here in the Le Bourron area, which is a very beautiful area, then is also the proper car for that, because again, it's not too big. So you're gonna, oh, does that fit lie right and left and so on? It does exactly fit still. So it's a, let's say, right sizing vehicle for the cities. You already have enough space for 4 tall adults, but then again, situations like those, if we would have a full-size SUV then here, yeah, that would be a little bit close right there. So I'm always paying attention to the pedestrians here, of course. Brakes, actually a good feeling for that, so I was a little bit harder now on the brakes, because I saw them actually quite late, and that still worked very well. Very unique turning indicator sound as well, right? With a rather, let's say, low frequency sound. So let's see. So far, trip 1 has about 8 liters on 100 kilometers. So, I mean, this was a lot of accelerating out of, a little bit varying the speed and so on. So it will be lower when we have like motorway and set cruise control, which we are a little bit more far away at the moment. So we'll see if we can get some other consumption figures, but that would actually be quite high. Yet again, it shows that this downsizing does not necessarily have a very big or good effect on the fuel economy. It's just mostly on paper that this downsizing really plays a significant role. Yeah, that's again what I was proving earlier, that it's good to have this very small SUVs. And about this whole SUV hating discussion, if you drive a car like this, I mean, the fuel economy is not high because it has this SUV building style. It's more like because it's a very, very small engine that is then at some point also stressed as for the RPMs, and because the cars are in general not that efficient as the ICE. Might be different than, again, with the electric motor, for example. But yet again, proves that it's a very good city vehicle. Oh, that was a little bit rough as for suspension. So yeah, when you're going over some road damages, like some potholes and so on, that was a little bit, especially from the rear axle, that felt a little bit rough. And let's see if we've got something more on the road here. It's always good to test when we have that on our routes. Definitely, yeah. Also those, roots that sometimes dig up the ground at the side. So from the rear axle, sometimes a little bit rough. I feel that. But overall, let's say again, agile and at the same time cozy feeling. I feel that I would be a little bit too big for the car, overall, although I fit in here also while driving. And then with a small steering and so on, to me it feels a little bit like a car from a like a comic book or something, but not in a negative way, like more in a funny, positive way, definitely. So what is missing, of course, still some performance when we hammer it a little bit more, and we have different driving modes, which I can hardly access them. So I have to do like a T-Rex here to access those driving modes. And I have Eco for less throttle input. I have normal, which I was in all the time, and sport. And in sport modes, the gears are turned up higher. Also, the car goes a gear lower first here. Now, for example, in the fourth gear, and so I have a better reaction than when I actually hit the throttle. And we can also show you that. So I come to a stop here now, and then I accelerate out. Also see how that plays out with the front wheel drive. Yeah, it has an effect on the front wheel. No, 60 already, 60 kilometers it was. So it has an effect on the front, the front wheel drive to the steering wheel, but that was still somewhat okay. Now 50 kilometers to 80. Plop, that's it. It was already 87, reducing the speed immediately now. The sound is actually quite decent, right? That's what we found quite often, that those 3 cylinders actually sound better than the 4 cylinders. Yeah, that's peculiar. So, why not? Why not? So, what else we have? We have a cruise control, which is here at the steering wheel column. So it's a separate column, and then you can set it here either to a limiter or to a cruise control, which is also an active cruise control, and you increase or decrease the speed here with your hand, then on the separate column again. And as an active cruise control, it also keeps the distance to the car in front of us. Now I'm in the normal driving mode again. We get up to a little bit more speed. It's actually quite decent as for the acceleration, so you have a lot of fun with this petrol engine. It's the fastest for the car, but I think you will also be able to live with a smaller one, maybe like the 130 horsepower or something. The 8-speed automatic gearbox is, by the way, pretty good, so it keeps it calm, collected. You have a lot of comfort, don't have to care about shifting, and no matter if you are really hammering it or letting it run very smoothly in a very calm way, it does both jobs in a very nice way. So automatic gearbox is actually a very nice choice. You also have those shifting levers here, those pedals, go back gear, and also up again, and it gives a nice feedback. They keep steady, so they don't move together with the steering wheel. They're just being kept in the same position. Yeah, maybe not the best levers here. I like it more when they move to the steering wheel. Maserati, for example, also has a different philosophy where they also are static all the way. And just, they don't move completely. It's just like the outer fields that move actually a little bit. So that's a little bit, strange to control. But at least you do have the possibility to also manually do that. Now again here on the brakes with a good feeling. So far, I think, interesting driving impressions. I think driving-wise, so everything, suspension-wise, how the car feels, is set on a very balanced feeling. And, so far it makes a very, very good impression. So the thing that is, of course, most unique with this car is that it creates this special driving feeling because of the steering and of the interior layout and so on. Yeah, this 3-cylinder, and of course, interesting sound. The turning indicator, the stalk column here, this could be from a little bit better quality when you sometimes hit it very hard. You're afraid, don't I ripped it off at some point or something. It's getting a little bit darker now as well, so we can see also how the lights perform. We do have the full LED lights inbuilt here, and so far they give me quite good illumination. The standard lights will have a little bit less range, so those ones would be a good option when you're often driving at night, for example. And we now also head on to the motorway before the light is all gone. And then on the motorway we can give you another acceleration and also drive a little bit faster, that we can talk about the noise insulation there a little bit better. So we're going left here now and really enjoy this ride here, having a lot of fun. Yeah, it's really nice. So I'm surprised that this car is actually so much fun, although it's, let's say, like a standard compact SUV. Yeah, I really wonder, that it's being done in Southern Europe quite often with those. There we go. We do have the automatic beeper there. Now we accelerate out. We put it once again to sports mode with the T-Rex right there. And from 20 kilometers to, let's see. That's 130 kilometers an hour, which is the official maximum speed limit on French motorways. And now I can also go back to the normal mode. So at about 130 kilometers an hour, the wind noise was picking up pretty much, but here at about 100 kilometers an hour, that's a good traveling speed, and it's also nice now noise insulation wise. And I also reset the trip meter and check out the fuel economy, and there we could bring it down below 6 liters in 100 kilometers. That's then somewhat okay. Again, will be higher than, as I said earlier, when you're driving a little bit, more in variation and so on. But then a little bit now 5.6 liters in 100 kilometers. That's, we can live with that, I guess. So, what do you think here about our driving impressions of the combustion engine? And now to the electric driving part of this review with the Peugeot E-2008. This will be very interesting, and two facts in advance. First of all, this motor here is a permanent magnet synchronous motor, so this is among the efficient ones. So the same technology that, approximately the same that Tesla is also using. And also they developed, together with Michelin, special tires for this electric vehicle to make it more rolling efficient. So let's see how that one, brings some advantages for the energy consumption. However, it's hard to, do a real energy consumption test today. We will give you some figures, yes. And of course, a realistic one we do at a later stage. What is clear, it's already pretty cold today. So this one will drain the battery a little bit more. But let's see how that goes. Bienvenue chez un autre épisode d'Autogefühl avec Thomas et Jonas. Well, that's for the French lesson for today. So, this one here now, the electric, the Peugeot E-2008. Yeah, that's the way. And we want to start with the acceleration. Got the free road in front of us, private road, and we were very amazing. I can promise you, front wheel drive only, about 9 seconds is the official figure. I've put it to sports mode. Soon talk more about that. Let's just see how it goes. And let's go. And that's 100. Wow. So pretty quick, and also a very smooth acceleration. Really cool. And on paper it is slower than the strongest petrol engine, but actually it feels faster. Yeah, that's really funny and definitely really cool. What do you think, Jonas?
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay. Yeah, Jonas has just returned from the Porsche Taycan winter driving event, so he's like, oh, of course. Damn, Brian, you were there. I was not. But I was also filming, of course, other stuff. On a parallel basis. So, and after we did this acceleration test, we will reset the consumption meter. That we get, an accurate figure for that. GPS is as well. We have a nice route set. You can also just set that one on here. You can check out what's happening in the screen, like from recuperation wise, or green or then blue again when power is being applied to the wheels and so on. It's always nice to look at, but maybe just predominantly for the co-driver. Of course, the really cool thing about the electric versions, as always, you start all silent. That's really cool, and it just relaxes you when you are driving all silent. It's just a nice feeling. So I always say, when you compare the combustion engine drive with the electric drive, it's always the better customer experience here with the electric vehicles. It's silent, it's at the same time powerful, so it's relaxing, and if you want, it's challenging at the same time. And that's what's really making this experience. Other than that, that's really, I don't really like that. So when you turn down the volume while the GPS is giving a command, you cannot turn it down to 0. That's always a little bit annoying, definitely. So as for the other characteristics, of course, this car is heavier. Those batteries usually make up plus 300 kilograms or something like that, but you don't really feel that much. It's still not super heavy car, and you have to think about battery is placed in the bottom of the vehicle, and that means the center of gravity is actually quite low, and this is actually contributing then also to the driving feeling. So I wouldn't say it feels less agile. Yeah, maybe it feels a little bit heavier because it is. But watch the birds. I always wonder why the birds are flying, on the road level, why they're just flying higher. So, and here, good slalom capabilities. Again, maybe it feels a little bit heavier, but at the same time, because the center of gravity is low, it still feels really, really good. Maybe even a little bit more stable because of that. And with this iCockpit, with a small steering wheel and this very modern setup, it again gives you a very unique driving feeling. And of course, torque is always there with the electric motor, so you can accelerate at any time, and it's just an effortless driving. That's pretty cool. As I said, they also use a permanent magnet motor, so synchronous drive, and this is usually also a pretty efficient drive, as we know from Tesla. And also this fact with the extra developed tires with less rolling resistance. So this is also contributing for the energy consumption. Does it feel different to drive than because of the tires or something? I wouldn't say so. So there is not a big difference in driving this one here and the petrol GT as for the general driving feeling. It's just again more silent, and that fits also to the nice noise insulation. And like from the power you get, it's of course a different power curve, because there's no real power curve with the electric motor, but there's a real power curve with the combustion engines. This one is a little bit different, but both were actually quite powerful. So we had the most powerful petrol engine, then here also the quite powerful electric motor. So they feel both very powerful for this smaller car, and it's just again a very fun driving experience. As this power delivery is more linear, you can play a little bit more with the throttle. You can fine-tune that acceleration, you have to be a little bit more gentle, because there's this direct torque input, and that's also pretty cool feeling, definitely. Now at the moment we're going uphill, and this also a big difference then. When you have the electric motor, you can always recuperate later on, and with the combustion engines, the energy is just lost, So the overall efficiency is of course better, and if you have charging possibilities at home, it might really be the way to go for. Checking the prices also and the subventions in your market, and for example in Germany, when you have the GT, which is also the GT here, so GT electric versus GT petrol, it's about 8,000 euros difference. Soon there will be in Germany like those subventions for 6,000 euros, and then almost the price difference is made up, and then you have maybe better taxation and so on. And this can even everything out. So question is, do you have your infrastructure? I can just stress again, it's a pleasure to drive those electric vehicles, and the same accounts also for that. It's such a good, nice driving feeling here at 80 kilometers an hour, so about like 50 mph. It's actually quite refined and silent yet again, and the car feels very, very sporty indeed. Although it has this crossover SUV styling, it's one of those cars, although it's quite silent, it always feels like you would be driving a little bit faster than you actually would, because it's so sporty challenging. Again, with a small steering wheel, this rather narrow cockpit. I feel somewhat cramped in this cockpit, so I think it's not the most suitable for tallest drivers. However, because of those sport seats, I still haven't gotten any back pain, also not the day before when I was driving the petrol engine. So I can really recommend those sport seats, no matter if they're in the bright fabric or in the darker fabric. That depends on if you have the GT petrol or the GT electric. So that's also quite astonishing. I mean, you maybe also see it on camera that I'm not sitting in the, let's say, best seating position, but still quite interesting that I still don't get any back pain. There. I was wondering, is the GPS leading us there to this off-road route? Turning circle here, interesting. And even if I just accelerate uphill, and that's 70 kilometers an hour again. Wow, it's pretty cool. And again, how effortless and silent this acceleration is being delivered. So very good. So what about recuperation? How have they set everything? So if I just leave the throttle, the car is rolling pretty much. I can also push this shifting lever forward to N, neutral. The comparison to D mode is there is a, let's say, a little recuperation. So N would be just rolling free. You usually don't shift in there. D is recuperating just a little bit. There are no shifting pedals here. I would have expected that they maybe put shifting pedals here, then to go 1, 2, 3 level of recuperation or something. They did not do that. So the thing you can do actually, either then, leave the throttle, then it's little recuperation, or you can put the shifting lever to yourself, to the back, and then you're in the B mode. And in the B mode, there is a stronger recuperation. Then you can also see how it charges a little bit more. So that is possible, depending on when you're going down for a longer time. The driving modes, whereas in the petrol engine or diesel, it's about how, there's a predecessor 2008, interesting to see. Then, in the combustion engines, how high the RPMs go, for example. This is like the more, when and where you're shifting. But here the driving modes is really directly connected to the Newton meter input. So this is really like in sports, you have more power, and when you go to the normal mode, a little bit less power, a little bit more delay, and then there's the eco mode. When you then hit the throttle, then it's, the throttle is not that sensitive. So the thing is, when does the power start? Here in the eco mode, I can like nothing is happening now. But then, for example, in contrast to that, to the sports mode, it's like directly, just from the first tip on the throttle, we directly go further. I mean, probably you should just leave it in normal mode, so something in between. I don't know. You can try around with that. With the very strong Teslas, I usually go to the softer modes because, for everyday driving, it's sometimes too harsh, this Tesla acceleration. Here, then, I think you can just try around. And, I did some harsh accelerations once again, so let me just reset the consumption meter once again, that we can get, a realistic value without, any of those experiments here. So, there we go. Here, for example, going downhill, I could also set it to the B mode now, so recuperation is charging. This car is not set out to be only one. Whoa, this guy behind us is driving really fast in the transporter. So the interesting thing is that they did not set it on a one-pedal driving feeling. So I can of course use the normal brakes, and then first the recuperation would be done. I can also see it in this charging meter. And then when I need more braking, then also the normal brakes are being applied. So you can also just leave it in the D mode and work with that. That's possible as well. Or then again use this B mode, have more something like a one pedal feeling. But again, the recuperation even from this B mode is not that strong that you would drive in that all the time. Of course, when you stay on the throttle, then there's no recuperation even in the B mode. You can also fine tune it with that and then just lift the throttle a little bit, push it again. So depending on how you like to drive best, so some might prefer driving in the B mode all the time and play a little bit more with one pedal. But here, for example, when I'm driving a little bit faster and lift the throttle even in B mode, there is recuperation, but not as strong as we have in other electric vehicles with very, very strong recuperation mode. What is better or what is worse? It always depends on, because when you are rolling is always the best in using the energy and not recuperating, unless you want to really reduce your speed, or the next traffic light is coming, or the next car in front of you. Then of course it's good to use as much recuperation as possible. If it's the one pedal feeling or not, you can't say that one thing is better or the other thing. It just depends on how you like to drive. It is something more special, something more EV specific when you use the brake pedal less. But maybe you want to say like, I prefer driving as it would be a combustion engine car, like this normal feeling. Then you just leave it in D mode, use more rolling, and then use the brakes, just on demand, for example. And no matter which speed we are rolling at the moment, again, especially up to 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, the noise insulation is really good. Very, very high speeds, you hear something, but again, also if you compare it to competitors in the segment, noise insulation is actually quite good. And again, this platform feels quite stiff. And the extra weight from the batteries, sometimes I have even the experience that the car does profit from the extra weight, which is put in the lower end, because it makes it stick more to the ground, so to say. Maybe that even cancels the maybe negative effect from the those rolling resistance optimized tires or something. I don't know. But definitely, again, a very good experience, and not such a huge difference between combustion and electric drive. That's also what they wanted to achieve. But yet again, I can say, if you just pick it from a driving experience as a customer, and don't worry about infrastructure or pricing or whatever, then the choice would always be the all-electric one, definitely. I'm not exactly sure what the range suggestion here at the moment does. So the battery is almost full, and at the beginning it said like 240 or 220 kilometers, depending on how we were driving. But that's a little bit strange, because the suggested range as for the WLTP cycle is 320 or 310 kilometers, depending on official papers. Sometimes say so, sometimes say so. It's about 200 miles. But here at the moment it seems it would be less. I mean, it's quite cold outside at the moment, 5 degrees Celsius. We do have the AC off though. And if you calculate the kilowatt hour consumption, so like the battery, the power output kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, just on on the calculator, it would be about 15 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers. So now we had some, corner driving, had some acceleration, but also some downhill, predominantly downhill, and then at the moment we are very low at about 8 or like about 9 kilowatt hours on 1 kilometers. That's of course again with the downhill, and that's where the electric vehicles are really good, because as soon as I lift the throttle, I have once again a recuperation. When I was doing like those acceleration, we were about 35 kilowatt hours on 1 kilometers. So that also shows, no matter if you go combustion engine or electric engine, if you really hammer the throttle, of course, the just the consumption is really high. And now we're going some uphill again, and we just check out how the consumption will evolve there. That we can give you, let's say, a close factor for that. At the end of the day, of course, to give you a very reliable figure as for that, we would need the car for longer term and drive even more different situations and so on. But it's already quite cool to be able to drive it here today. You can have a lot of fun, and that's really what I take from both of those versions. In this really small SUV segment, I have to say, this one here was so far one of the most fun ones to drive. And again, more comfort than in the 208, which is just a normal small car. A little bit more comfort, especially with those GT seats. And so much fun to drive. It's really joy, and that's pretty astonishing. I was surprised by that. It doesn't look that much fun on the outside that it actually is to drive, So, and very nice looking exterior, and yeah, some of the parts here on the interior could be a little bit better as for the interior build finish. Not necessarily with the base entry-level engine price, but then again, if you go high up in the trims or maybe in electric and pay a little bit more money, then I think, yeah, that would be nicer right there. So we drive a little bit further here to give you some more accurate figures as for the kilowatt-hour consumption. Here now, we already get to a more realistic figure because we went uphill. Now we're about 15 to 16 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers, and that would indeed be the official calculated energy economy, let's call it that way. So that is a more realistic figure, and that's also something, then it would actually work with the official range. Not again sure what the prediction here is, but I think the prediction here is not that realistic. Now it was staying at 200 kilometers for last 10 kilometers. I'm not sure. How those predictions are calculated differs from car to car. Some cars do it, from more current data which the car is collecting. Some other cars do it from past data. Say what was the fuel economy and as for the past runs, and some mix it. So it really depends on. So sometimes they're really realistic, sometimes they aren't. So we have to see about that. But more realistic is, of course, when you take the consumption figure, the current one, and then calculate it up to the size of the battery, or when you have the time, just drive the battery all empty. Now we're going predominantly downhill again, and I was staying in the B mode. So as soon as I lift the throttle, again some more recuperation, and that's actually quite good feeling. Since you also have engine brake in the petrol and the diesel engine, it does come close somewhat then also to a petrol or diesel engine when you are in this B mode, because you're always decelerating a little bit with the combustion engines again. So those are our impressions here with the electric drive. And now I really would be looking forward to your feedback. Which one would you go for? And now to our conclusion for today with the all-new Peugeot 2008 and the E2008. Has been a very interesting 2 days here with those cars. And I have to say, exterior-wise, it's actually quite daring, different than the competitors, quite strong and modern in the design. It's a little bit longer than before, so you have more interior space. That is a significant change to the predecessor, especially that you now have some, real leg room. This is pretty cool. Then also the styling on the interior is pretty daring. So a very modern cockpit layout with some different ideas, especially in the GT trim. You also have those great sporty seats. So the GT trim is also the one to go for if you want something really fancy. Yeah, pricing wise, it will start pretty attractive with a normal petrol engine with about 22,000 euros, taking German reference prices. The top one then 35,000, the GT with the top petrol engine. And then you almost have everything in what you already need. And then this is also the starting price, about 35,000 for the electric version, up to 42,000 here in the GT trim. So the difference more or less will be about 8,000 euros then from the top GT petrol spec to the top E2008. And it depends on it. It's definitely more expensive, yes. If you take governmental subsidiaries in comparison then, and also some taxation benefits, this can actually even out the difference then. At the end of the day, well, it's more about than the driving, and has been great with both ICE and EV. This vehicle is extreme fun. So it's really a lot of fun to drive this one. Yeah, I feel somewhat cramped as a tall person in the interior. I have enough space, yes, but like from seat position wise, interestingly, especially due to those GT seats, I did not get any back pain overall, although I felt cramped a little bit, so it was actually quite fine in the end of the day. With this iCockpit, with a small steering wheel, that has some disadvantages as for the visibility somewhat, and space for your legs and steering wheel. But yet again, due to the small steering wheel and this arcade-alike gaming characteristic, it was so much fun to drive. Then of course this new platform, and also with a low center of gravity here with the EV, driving the EV and the petrol engine felt not too different actually. This one here, yeah, a little bit more weight, but then also a little bit more connection to the weight at the ground. So both were actually a lot of fun to drive. This one here and the EV, of course, with a more silent drive. It's up to you. And I think it would really matter the charging infrastructure. And are you predominantly going short ways and have charging infrastructure? EV way to go. If you're more like go also on longer journeys and so on, charging infrastructure not that good, with your household, then the petrol is still the way to go. Yeah, and the petrol was also actually quite high in fuel economy, quite high in the fuel consumption for this size of a vehicle. EV, it was really hard to get a realistic figure. It will drain the battery when it's cold, that's clear, although they're also using a heat pump here, so we have to see how that one plays out on the long run. But you don't calculate a range that you would say I really see, there's 10 kilometers more or less. You need the charging infrastructure and have, always to have a buffer that you don't get any range anxiety. Overall, I think this car is a very nice offer, also price performance wise, both in the petrol and in the EV version. But what's your take? Please discuss this car here with us and tell us, petrol, diesel or EV, which one would you actually go for? And now to our conclusion for today. The Mazda CX-30 offers an extensive package of standard equipment that's very cool and fair to the customer and makes driving also safer. The CX-30 shows a good natural driving experience and a nice interior. Rear space is not that plentiful. Unique selling point are naturally aspirated engines and the new Skyactiv X engine, which essentially has an effect like a turbo for the driver. The Nissan Juke in the new generation is more SUV than before and has undergone a massive upgrade in interior build quality, especially that lovely white interior is very fancy. A good overall package. The powertrain, however, can be a little weak at times. The Peugeot 2008 has this unique EV option which gives you an amazing driving experience. If you don't have charging infrastructure at home yet, however, the petrol also does fine. The new generation 2008 is also more SUV than before and offers nice visual solutions for the interior. The cockpit setup is special like in all the new Peugeots and gives you this computer game feeling. Overall, the car is pretty small but also Paris suitable, so to say. The Kia XCeed is the most straightforward car in this test, most conservative as for the interior layout, but also among the easiest to control. The build quality is very high. It also shows a very balanced and neutral handling. The Toyota CHR is unique due to its inbuilt hybrid possibility. That plays a role especially in city traffic where you can save fuel. The more you drive on the motorway, the more useless the system gets, however. The exterior design is the most unusual one. The interior, especially in the rear, is a little bit cramped. Long-term durability experience also speaks for the CHR. So where does it leave us? Again, a pretty tough decision. If you want to go electric, sure, it is the Peugeot e-2008. And you can very well argue for that if you have the suitable charging infrastructure and your lifestyle suits an electric driving profile. Driving the 2008 all-electric is a lot of fun. So yes, the Peugeot e-2008 is already one winner in this comparison test. But what about if we just take all combustion engines? The most unusual and most fun driving experience you will indeed also have in the Peugeot 2008 in any case, due to that special cockpit layout. More suitable for taller people, that's also why I prefer it, is the Kia XCeed. It feels like it would have the best build quality and the most solid overall package. It is not that emotion-packed as the 2008, but the XCeed just does the job in every kind of aspect and even delivers a good long-term comfort. So this would be then my pick for today. Surely it is closely followed by the Mazda CX-30, which is also a very convincing offer. Then I would go for the Nissan Juke, which shows a massive improvement in this new generation, or for the Peugeot 2008 petrol, especially if I wasn't that tall. The Toyota in this case gets last place. You see that the other vehicles are newer and the CHR doesn't offer a good exterior length interior space ratio. But overall all good cars, and they fulfill a lot of needs at the same time. That's why the compact, subcompact or small SUVs, however your definition is, are so popular at the moment and also will continue to be so. So the Kia XCeed, it is my pick for today here. Second, the E2008 when EV infrastructure is in place. Which pick would be yours and why? See you in the comments, and I also hope you really enjoyed this comparison episode.